there's one over there. Jeez Louise. Oh my God, I think we're live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Dangerous Rhetoric live stream number
We need
3.
an intro.
We need an intro.
Really need an intro.
We'll get there one day.
All right, let me go find a lighter because you went live before I was able to.
Oh,
there it is.
There's one somewhere. Jesus.
All right, cool. I wanted to start on time too, but it's whatever. We need an intro.
So, everyone, anyway, whatever. Welcome to the third live stream. I'm trying to, hold on, I'm going to pull up the YouTube so I can have the YouTube chat somewhere.
Most informal intro ever. Good job, Brent.
Welcome, everyone. We love you. Thank you for joining
Is anyone
us.
even in this chat? I haven't checked.
Who cares? It
I
doesn't
haven't
matter.
looked. I'm just asking you, Brent. I didn't even look. I'm not in the chat.
I'm trying to get there. Hold on.
Jesus Christ.
Wow, we have 807 subs now.
Yeah, no one's in the chat.
I'm trying to get there. Hold on. Okay.
It's okay. All right. Well,
I have the chat up.
Let's just jump into whatever the hell we're gonna do. But I guess before we do that, for anyone who's watching this after recording it, don't forget, to like, sub, all that stuff. If you want to donate and help us continue to do this, we very much appreciate that. It helps a lot. Today we're going to jump into a fascinating subject, one that we actually have covered on the show before a few times, and I don't just mean January 6th, but I mean the specific character we are discussing today on this live stream, which is John E. Sullivan. And we talked about John Sullivan a couple times on the show when Brent and I first started Dangerous Rhetoric, and it was just him and I doing this, and we weren't really doing interviews, and our earlier formal-ish episodes. And we found him to be a fascinating character because his story has so many crazy aspects to it, and he is not in jail right now. And Brent and I are very much convinced, I would say I'm 99% convinced, that this guy is some kind of asset, some kind of, I don't know if he works for the government or with the government.
Well, somebody's paying him.
But there's something very unusual about this character and his role in the January 6th events. And we really want to focus on that and revive this because we feel like this guy's not really talked about enough. So he might want to get talked about too. So we got to be careful here. But at the same time, he played a pivotal role in the events of that day. And I just feel like it's not commonly highlighted in that way. So
a few things here. First of all, characters like him seem to have like this sort of narcissistic tendencies. So you really don't want to feed into their narcissism. However, that said, his role in the January 6th events is kind of historic in a way. He was on the front lines. He was there busting in. He recorded video of the whole thing. He got like an hour and a half of video where they just busted through the whole thing. He went in through a broken window. His story is so fascinating.
You forgot to mention the most important thing, though. He caught the best footage of Ashley Babbitt's murder.
Yeah, he got the best footage of her getting shot.
Yeah.
But where was I going with that?
Not just the best footage, the footage that ended up on basically any of the major media outlets that was getting,
so let's just walk through.
Publicized.
Actually, his Wikipedia is really good. So I think that's a good place to start for people who haven't been exposed to this guy. And then we will go into an article by Max Blumenthal. So this is his Wikipedia. Let me zoom in so this looks a little bit more. What? That's not the right window.
There's one in the chat. Brick Hardcastle.
Brick.
What up?
Brick.
What's up, fellas?
You are a true fan, Brick.
Thank you, sir. We're doing okay. We're hanging in there. We just decided kind of on a whim yesterday that we wanted to do a live stream, and Brett and I just got talking about John Sullivan again because I forgot what came up that made us decide to do this. You pulled him up.
It was actually an interesting way that came about. The FBI recently put out their child protection app, which is like a little FBI developed app where you can store information about your child. So you can store recent pictures, descriptions, in case anything were to happen, you're emotional and you can just have it available and you can just give it to the police. So there was a thread, and everybody, of course, the comments were destroying the FBI. Everybody was like really sarcastically, referencing the Epstein situation and Larry Nassar.
Think about it, though.
The FBI protected Larry Nassar for many years. He was the guy that was diddling the young female Olympians.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of the comments were brutal. And
but
one of
can
them,
you blame the commenters?
Okay,
though?
but
Seriously,
let me hold on. Don't you're taking me off on tangents.
I know. Sorry.
So the one of the comments was specifically regarding Ray Epps, and then somebody was like, "Oh, but what about that? What about that? This guy? What about that John Earle Sullivan guy?" And I was like, "Yeah, what about him?" Because I had totally forgot about him. I did a video about him back in January of 2021 for my It's Brentley channel. And
we've mentioned
I've covered his
him.
history, and we've talked about him on the show before.
We have,
but I didn't know what was the update. You know, whatever happened. You know, this guy was charged with multiple crimes, and we'll get there. And you know, the last I heard, he was out on. You know, he was out. He didn't have any bail.
Yeah.
And considering the way that they're treating the other January 6 rioters, or you know, trespassers, and so a lot of them did not riot; they just trespassed. And you know, some of them are still in jail, still haven't had a trial, and yet he's out, free, no bail, and making really high quality videos. I'll show you guys in a little bit.
Well, I want to pull up some of that. I don't know if you found the long footage of.
Nope, I did not find it.
So,
and we're not going to air it because anything that we show right now could be copyright claimed.
That's true.
So he
might come after us. Well, I'll describe just a bit of that and why Brent and I are so. I'm not going to say surprised, but why we find this character to be suspicious. You know, like Brent mentioned, when you look at how some of the other people who were involved in the storming and all of that have been treated, some quite horribly, man, people who didn't even really do anything. They just have trespassing charges. But this guy has this long footage in which he's on camera, like riling the crowd up, trying to provoke them to do things to Trump supporters. And, you know, he's on camera himself, recording himself saying, let's burn this down. Let's, you know, like break this, break that, whatever. You know, he's trying to rile these people up. It's very clear. And the fact that he was in there, he was so close. He was in, like right next to Ashley when the footage happened. The fact that footage just ended up so easily in the hands of the media, and they, you know, paid him $90,000.
Hold on.
I'm getting ahead of myself. But the point is, there's so many things about his story that just don't make any sense. How is this guy not locked up right now like the other protesters?
So let's get back to where I wanted to go. Let's go through his Wikipedia. So John Earle Sullivan was born 1994, also known as Jayden X, Activist John. He is a political activist, self-identified photojournalist who participated in the 2021 United States Capitol attack. Before January 6th attack, he was also involved in protests relating to Black Lives Matter, although BLM organizers explicitly disavowed him and expelled him from their rallies, warning fellow activists to avoid associating with him. On January 6th, he entered the Capitol and broke a window. He repeatedly shouted encouragement to fellow rioters. He captured footage of the attack and his interactions with law enforcement and the shooting of Ashley Babbitt. After he participated in the attack, accusations arose that accused him of being affiliated with Antifa, although federal authorities had not identified him as such, and he stated that he has no relationship to the Antifa. So, like, first of all, Antifa is an idea. There aren't like really, you know, there's like Antifa clubs and there are Antifa groups.
Yeah,
but you don't have to be a member to hold their ideology. Like, and we'll get into his ideology, but see, basically, he is an agent of chaos.
Yeah.
He's like the Joker in The Dark Knight. He just wants to stir the pot and burn it all down. And that's his sort of core ideology when you get down to it.
I think there might be like some narcissism and stuff going on. And we're going to go into that too.
There's a lot of narcissism.
Oh yeah, there's definitely
so much narcissism.
Yeah, I shouldn't say a little. There's definitely a lot. And it's just, it feels like, you know, watching that footage too, and I want to go back to that just because it's crazy. And we're not going to show it just because it's so long. But watching it, I did get the impression that like this guy really wanted something to happen. Anything that he could capture and get and bring back to these media organizations to get his pay, but also to get like his 15 minutes of fame, his attention. You know, he wants to be known for something, anything. And I think that's kind of what we're dealing with this guy. But Brent and I think it could be deeper than that too. You know, aside from mental illness, he could have been approached. He could be an informant of some sort. He could be an asset. And, you know, we're going to talk a bit more about that as well and why we think that.
Hey, Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
Shout
what's
out
up?
To the second person in the chat. All right.
Yay. There's 4 people watching. 5 people watching.
Also, cool. So along with the Wikipedia article, sorry, New York is New York.
Yeah, we're in Manhattan, guys. Remember, it gets loud.
So along with that, there's this article by Max Blumenthal, Chaos Agent, Right Wing Blames U.S. Capitol Riot on Notorious Instigator Banished by Black Lives Matter. So in this article, basically...
This was from 2021, right?
This was late January, January 12th, 2021.
Yeah, so this was shortly after.
Basically what had gone down was that he basically summarizes all of his interactions through BLM. I mean, we can go through here too, but we're not quite there yet. I wanted to get into his early life. So interesting backstory. Mr. Sullivan was adopted into a conservative Mormon family. His father, John Sullivan Sr., was a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army. Interesting. Sullivan has 3 younger brothers. One of them, James, is actually involved in activism and conservative Black activism, specifically in Utah.
I remember when we first found out about that, you and I were like, wait, what?
So the one brother was trying to ingratiate himself with the lefties, and the other is ingratiating himself with the righties.
So was the brother like involved with the Proud Boys? I can't remember what organization.
Well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there. But yeah, he was involved, I think, with the Proud Boys.
Yeah, which is crazy when you think about it. It's like, wait, these 2 brothers, both kind of involved in these polar opposite.
Adopted into a military family. Yeah. I mean, just like reeks of MK Ultra.
Reeks of MK Ultra. I don't know, man. It's like, look, you got to question this stuff. It's too, and again,
we'll get there too.
Why is this guy not in jail?
It's early, but we'll get there. So at first, he graduated from high school. He wanted to be a cop. Got involved in speed skating, and in 2016, he was featured in a commercial blog post on Uber's site describing him as searching for a way to earn money that fit with his busy training schedule. He participated in the 2018 Olympic trials but failed to qualify. Despite this, he has claimed to have competed in the 2018 Olympic Games.
What? I didn't know that.
That goes to the narcissism, right?
Yeah.
Because the glib willingness to lie about these things. It's that jumped out at me.
Yeah.
And then prior to the Capitol riot, he got involved in Utah. So his brother, conservative activist James Sullivan, reports that John was conservative until recently. And James Sullivan founded Civilized Awakening, part of the greater far-right patriot movement. So his brother founded their own little group, his own little group. And in June 2020, John Sullivan founded Insurgents USA. So this is a group that participates in protests. This is his corporation, basically. He was accused of exploiting the racial justice movement for self-gain. No, never.
It doesn't happen. That never happens.
Apparently, he had been selling merchandise, indulging in self-promotion on many websites. He also was selling protest-related gear, such as black clothing, gloves, gas masks, and branded Black Bloc Gear Collective.
Like, at least this guy is a grifter. At worst, there's something more nefarious going on here. Because, so one of the things Brett and I have been wondering is, is this guy getting money from somewhere?
He is getting money from somewhere. That is 100%. Well, also, we'll get into it, but the footage that he had captured at the Capitol riot, he sold to various outlets, including NBC, ABC, and I think the Washington Post, and for a total of $90,000, which was then seized. So, and we'll get. This is the most recent thing that I found.
Not just sold; that footage was on air the same day.
Yeah,
so I understand. He got it into their hands real damn quick.
We'll get there. So then in June 2020, so this is during the BLM riot season, he led his first event. BLM leader Lex Scott recalled his very first protest he held was the one that got someone shot.
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
The event was a counter protest to a pro-police protest where the Back the Blue protest was consisting of a number of vehicles driving around the Provo police station. This is in Utah. Sullivan and other organizers organized a counter protest to block those vehicles. And I've spoken about this before. This is one of the worst things you can do in order to protest, folks.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
Never block traffic, unless you're shutting down a city, in the case like the Canadian truckers, or what's happening in Denmark right now, which is super important. They're pushing these crazy environmental protections about nitrogen in the soil, where they're using this as a land grab and shutting down all these small farmers. And so they're protesting by blocking the streets.
I think
they're using vehicles.
Blocking major highways.
People getting in front
roads,
of cars is never a good idea. It's so dangerous for the people doing it. It's dangerous for the drivers. And it doesn't really help your cause. It doesn't advance your agenda. It makes you look like a bunch of buffoons, and it makes you earn the ire of the civilian population. So it is one of the worst protest tactics, especially for these little, like these kind of protests.
So I wanted really quick though. I wanted to bring up you brought up the trucker protest, and one of the things I remember about that when that was going on in Canada is there was a concerted effort amongst those organizing that to try their best to not block the roadways and to not.
Yeah, they left emergency access.
To keep emergency exits and stuff open.
Like
they wanted to do it in a way. Obviously,
if you use trucks or a car or something, and you're doing it in an organized fashion with a large organization, but when it's like small little things like this, people putting their bodies in front of cars on the street, it's the worst thing you can do.
Well, I just want to acknowledge that, one of the things about protests is obviously that you want to get attention, right? You want to bring attention to some cause and thing that you're doing. But I think the point here you're making is a valid one that, what kind of attention are
flowers,
you bringing?
We can pull that up a little bit. But the thing is, anything I air that could possibly be DMCA struck, I want to avoid having on the stream because I don't want, somebody to use a false copyright claim. We could pull this later.
We could probably play short little blips and stuff like that, but we would have to pause and comment on it and things like that. And
I can pull it up. I do have an interview of him.
There's fair use laws
from Inside Edition.
There's fair use laws, but at the same time, people who want people who want to nefariously report you will try to find a way to nefariously report you for something. So there's also that. So
let's get through this thing. So what ended up happening, so these people were flooding the street in counter protest. And, what was that? Oh, there's somebody. I think Miss George Zamaripa.
Oh, we have a special guest?
Yeah, but give me a second. We'll get there. Sullivan was arrested and charged with rioting. So at the protest, shots were fired into a vehicle and the driver was injured. One man, Jesse Taggart, was charged with attempted murder. Later, it came out that this guy was on John Sullivan's team, acting, at his something I read said he was acting as his bodyguard, quote unquote. But Utah is also, I think they're an open carry state too. They have very everybody has guns, so it's not that surprising. But Sullivan was arrested, charged with rioting, making a threat of violence and criminal mischief. According to police affidavit, he damaged vehicles and cooperated with Insurgents USA to recruit protesters for a protest. Sullivan indicated that he thought the driver who was shot at was trying to run over protesters, a claim rejected by police. So the reason they pulled the trigger at this guy was because the reason the guy shot said was because he was using his car to run people over when he was actually, the car was being surrounded. There is video of that too.
Yeah. Well, that's a thing too that tends to happen in these protest events. A car will be trying to get through and then they'll end up getting surrounded and then the driver gets frustrated. He might beep, he does something. And what happened, especially during the riots in 2020, the summer of 2020, there were a lot of incidents where some drivers got pulled out of their cars and beat up and stuff like that for antagonizing the protesters just because, and they weren't antagonizing, they were just trying to get through,
Yeah. So it's never a good idea to put bodies in roads.
Also, there might be a mosquito. I saw something flying around, just letting you know. Oh, no! Keep in mind.
So this continues. So he got in trouble for having a gun. So Miss George, you need to change your stuff is not connected. It says so. I can't add you to the stream because your thing is not turned on yet.
What is camera?
Just FYI,
or his mic?
Both.
Yeah.
So he needs to connect them or something, or maybe quit the stream and then rejoin or something. Oh wait, she's got it. I think maybe.
So we're pulling in right now, George Zamaripa. If you guys haven't yet, please check out our latest episode of episode 69.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
We don't see you. Your camera's not on.
I know. I'm actually at work. I'm just listening.
Oh shit. Okay. Well, we will continue. If you want to jump in, just
feel
say
free.
Something in the chat.
We're talking about Jan 6, we're talking about John Sullivan, but we'll probably go a bit more into what we saw that day too, but we'll get there. We kind of just want to go over this.
You're all over the place tonight.
I am all over the place.
Good.
There's so much to talk to. There's so much to talk about that I'm just damn, I want to cover everything.
Just got major ADD. All right, so I'll throw you out for now, and then we're going to go back to the Wikipedia. So, Sullivan organized events in Provo, Utah that were controversial with BLM. He experienced greater skepticism after July 1st, 2020 event where he invited speeches from the Proud Boys, an American far-right. Okay, this is a little ridiculous.
Yeah, it's Wikipedia, Brad.
It's Wikipedia. Anyway, the Proud Boys are conservative. They're a conservative group, and the Proud Boys is like the conservative version of Antifa. There are multiple Proud Boy organizations all over the country. They're all different. They're all some of them are more extreme than others. And, they have been involved in, physical violence and stuff. They formed also, they're kind of formed as a joke. It was basically originally a joke. It's interesting if you look into the origins of the Proud Boys. But
the history of Proud Boys is a really weird thing. But I don't think overall, when I look back at the Proud Boys and I look back at Antifa, I saw more damage societal wise happening from Antifa, burning things.
This is true.
Stuff,
and I mean, characterizing them as a far-right neo-fascist organization that engages in political violence is just a gross generalization.
They're definitely on the right.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, they're on the right. Yeah. And yes, they will. Some of them do engage in physical violence, depending on the situation. But whatever.
Say the same about Antifa. I'm sure they're quite.
They cause it. Proud Boys react to it, or they show up to protect groups. Anyway, and then again, they're totally infiltrated by the feds. So both sides are infiltrated by the feds.
Probably.
Both sides probably are the feds.
Yeah. Well, John Sullivan, I think, is just kind of like a little example of how that can sort of be done, which is why we're highlighting this case.
Anyway, so Sullivan's close relationship with the Proud Boys got him sort of exiled from the BLM activists. Later, he got his group firearms training, apparently. On September 26, his brother James had addressed a Proud Boys rally in Portland on behalf of James's far-right group, Civilized Awakening. I mean, I don't know if characterizing them as far-right is fair. I find that phrase a little bit trite.
Again, it's Wikipedia, so they kind of label anything that is too right of the woke narrative as far right.
So let me just get through here. So Sullivan continued. He held a solo armed protest at the Utah State Capitol carrying an AR-15. That's a very expensive piece of hardware, folks. There is a picture somewhere of him at that. Let me see, I bet I can find it.
Yeah, those rifles aren't cheap.
John Earle Sullivan, Utah.
You're looking for him carrying
protest, Utah Capitol. Arm. Come on, Brave. There it is. So this is him with his AR-15, full tactical gear. Here's a bigger one. Let's blow that up. There we go. So yeah. You can see he's obviously well equipped. That's definitely an expensive piece of hardware. So one wonders what is the
nice gun though.
It's a nice gun. It's 223. But anyway, let's go back to here. Held a armed protest, Utah State Capitol. Lasted a few hours, during which he was confronted by 20 armed men from the Utah Citizens Alarm, which I guess is another right-wing militia group in Utah. As he began carrying assault rifles to protest, this invited hostilities from both the right and the left. So here we see very clearly, again, his use of firearms in order to encourage and incite. So because he was there carrying one, these other guys, popped up in response. And you can see how he has this sort of provoking effect, and this is the traditional role of the agent provocateur, which is somebody who will intend to ingratiate themselves into a protest movement and then provoke, rile up, and then turn it into a violent mob that is then able to be directed toward a specific activity, or because they're now a violent mob, it gives the authorities the legitimacy to go in there, clamp down, arrest everyone, and shut down the whole thing. So that's the use of the agent provocateur. In August 2020, he was filmed giving a speech outside the U.S. Capitol. He spoke of burning this S down and told the crowd, "We got to rip Trump out of office, that office right over there," while pointing at the White House. He added, "We ain't effing waiting till the next election." So again, we can see his extrajudicial, willingness to go outside the law in order to achieve his ends. Yeah, there's a lot here. So Lex Scott, who remember was the leader of that BLM organization in Utah, so he had association with Sullivan, said that Sullivan seemed to have a death wish, as he thought it would be cool or amazing if he was ended at a protest and it started a revolution.
Wow. Yeah, so delusions of grandeur is what
Delusions
this
of grandeur,
is.
right?
So I wanted to bring up Nightcrawler really quick, that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh,
yeah, and the reason why I wanted to bring it up is aside from being like an agent provocateur, another thing that he reminded me of possibly what is going on here is that sort of thing. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie, but in the movie you basically have a character, Jake Gyllenhaal, who's a pretty interesting example of like a very antisocial personality, psychopathic type character who starts to get involved in the news industry and filming incidents. So, whenever something would occur, he starts to go out with his little camera and to try to get the footage so he can sell this footage to the media. And as the story progresses, his character starts to do crazier and crazier things to get this footage. Even to the point where in the end, he kind of even like causes a situation to happen in which, his partner dies. I won't get too much into it.
Spoiler alert.
I already spoiled a bit. But just so he
it's an old movie.
Yeah, just so he can get the shot, so he can sell the footage. And it just for some reason it kind of reminded me of John Sullivan.
What's his name? I always forget his name.
Yeah, I forget it too. He was
It's not Rami Malek? No.
That's not
Rami. No, that's the other guy.
No, but he was in that movie we just saw. I think Encounter. It was called Encounter.
Yeah, he was in Encounter,
which was a really fascinating.
He was in that Amazon Prime drummer movie that we haven't watched yet.
I have not seen that. Yeah.
And he was also in Rogue One.
But yeah, anyway, so the footage of that Sullivan took on the day of Jan 6th, the long footage, because it was really long. Brent and I can't find it right now. We probably can't show it anyway. But just that's the kind of impression that I got when I was watching that, when I first saw it, over a year ago, is that like, here's someone who's there, they're trying to get something to happen, make something happen so they can catch it on camera for whatever reason.
Sorry, Brick.
What did he say? Spoiler. Oh shit, I'm sorry, man. I apologize.
He's seen it before though.
It's fine. It's a great movie. I've seen it a couple times, and it's definitely one.
I think it's 2014. Great flick. Really good flick.
Again, if you want like a good example of like kind of like an obvious psychopath, not even like a really good one, but
Jake Gyllenhaal's performance in that movie was Oscar worthy. Yeah. I mean, he was just so good.
Yeah.
His whole mannerisms, the way that he like.
So cold. He was able to really play the coldness well.
And manipulative, and the way he would practice emotions in the mirror.
Did he do that? I don't remember if
he did.
Yeah.
He did
so that's a very like telltale psychopath.
Classic psychopath. And comedian.
I mean,
comedians do it for a different reason.
Actors do it as well. But look, psychopaths, a lot of them act. There's a lot of acting involved in that. Alec Baldwin.
What? Danny, you can't say that.
John Sullivan.
Well, I don't know. So anyway,
you don't think John's a psychopath?
I don't know.
Let's not try to diagnose it.
I don't want to. Well, I don't know. You could say there's definitely narcissistic tendencies. Yeah. There's a willingness to lie and engage in violence.
Delusions of grandeur.
So I don't know. Let's keep going and see where we end up. So Lex also denied Sullivan as a member of BLM Utah and expressed suspicions of his seeking fame, adding that he never attended any BLM meetings or worked alongside them to advance their agenda.
Yeah, so it's like, why was he there? Who sent him there?
He would just show up at their events, often with a film crew, and this is where's all this resources and help and logistic? Yeah. Where's all this coming from?
Are they friends of his who want to like participate in his endeavors, or is there something else going on here? And who sent him? Is he really there to just try to get that 15 minutes of fame or something, or is he there with like an agenda that someone put him up to?
So it seems that James and John were both perhaps being handled by Miss Jade Sacker. So Jade Sacker is a documentary filmmaker, quote unquote. Although I'm not sure
was she the one filming?
She was the one with him
that day.
They were both filming. Yeah,
okay.
She was also with him.
Yep.
So her thing is that she was doing a documentary on him.
Okay.
So, and he was doing, and also she said that John got word days in advance that there was going to be an assault on the Capitol. So if Jade and John knew that days in advance,
the feds didn't.
Come
on. And the next day, that 10-foot fence was up. You couldn't put that up the day before. Come on.
Well, it just seems like they intentionally had weak security.
Yes.
So and
they
then
something to happen.
They intentionally had weak security. They also told them at some point to open those doors because they opened the doors and they let people in. And
I love the t-shirts.
That's actually
that was not planned. I didn't realize you were wearing
Jordan Peterson
I did not realize you were wearing your Hell Lobster shirt.
Yeah.
I put on my this is my clean your room.
We have to shout out Daddy Peterson because they have excised him from Twitter over his use of the dead name of Elliot Page.
Oh yeah, you can't do this, guys. You can't use the former name of someone who has changed their name. That is a violation.
Well, the question is, who was the person that starred in Juno? Or the X-Men movies?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Are they gonna change the credit?
Back to John Sullivan.
They're gonna change the credits, Brent. Update the films.
So apparently, Sacker used 2 teams to document the brothers' efforts, and would later accompany John Sullivan into the Capitol. So denounced and expelled. An activist from Portland. Oh, hey, let me go back to here. Whoop. Activists from Portland warned people not to trust him after he managed to get local activists arrested in September 2020 by leading them down a wrong route and into a police kettle. Sullivan was widely suspected of being a double agent working for law enforcement. In Signal chat groups, Sullivan would use various sock puppet accounts to create the illusion that others were defending his reputation.
Wow.
Where have we seen that before?
I don't know. So this is reminding me of a particular potato who I suspect does this. I'm not going to name this potato, but those who know.
Shut up.
You know, you know.
Don't say her name. Don't name the potato.
Oh, God.
Labor activist Talia Jane said Sullivan is reviled through the activist space. On September 16th, James Sullivan and Civilized Awakening held a counter-protest against BLM. James brought a bodyguard to the BLM protest. That individual was arrested and charges on brandishing a firearm. So again, we see the brother connected to an individual who was bringing guns to protests. Not a good idea.
The Black Panthers would disagree, Brent.
Well, okay, different times, different protests.
Just saying.
I'm just in the context of the current crazy, like unless you have a CCW and you are very well trained in the use of your firearm, you should not be bringing guns.
Well,
to
look,
protest.
it is going to provoke people,
and you don't brandish them. Like you don't like. This is the other thing people don't understand. Like guns are not something you don't brandish. You don't point it at people. The only time you pull that thing out is when you intend to shoot to kill in order to defend yourself or the life of somebody else.
I have a little devil's advocate question, but what if it's not just a protest anymore and it's a riot? What about like a Kyle Rittenhouse situation?
Well, in a Kyle Rittenhouse, again, that's that's like a war zone type situation. You have your firearm out all the time.
Yeah,
you're careful.
What I mean is, some would argue that him bringing it there was provocation, is what I mean.
Well, yeah,
in the way that we're describing.
But his carry was completely legal.
It was. Yeah.
So that's not. You can't say that.
I'm not disputing that, but
his carry was legal.
Sure, I'm just saying. The reality of it is like people will. There are many people who will see.
He did not brandish until he was assaulted.
I got it. I'm just saying, there are many people out there who will see just like the presence of a firearm as like provocation. Like, why did you need that here? Why are you bringing? You get what I mean? So I'm not saying you shouldn't have had it there. I'm not saying he was wrong for having it. Or anything. I don't believe in that. But the presence of a firearm is a provocation.
Yeah.
Well, look, for some people it is, unfortunately, and I'm sad that it is.
Well, then they shouldn't go outside.
Maybe they shouldn't. I don't know. The world is a scary place.
Anyway,
America is a gun culture, but we will move on from that.
Getting back to John Sullivan, activist Portland warned people not to trust him. Okay, we were there already. Counter protest.
The sock puppet accounts thing is so like.
On November 26, 2020, Seattle activists published a memo accusing John Sullivan of being an agent provocateur, seeking to undermine the BLM movement. Quote, John has been kicked from the Salt Lake City and Portland protest scenes due to alarming behaviors, including grifting, profiteering, self-promotion, clout chasing, sabotaging of community actions, threats of violence, and maybe most disturbingly, ties to the far right. John's brother, James, is the co-founder of a pro-Trump organization called Civilized Awakening and has strong ties to the Proud Boys. Even having spoken at a Proud Boy rally, the brothers polarize. The political stances conveniently bolster each other's public personas. Activists in these cities recommend that he be barred from community actions and totally avoided.
Maybe we're not focusing enough on James, too. You know, there's not...
I mean, we can get there.
Yeah, I just feel like he's not talked about as much at all. Obviously, because he wasn't there in Jan 6 and inside the building. Was he there in Jan 6? He wasn't inside the building.
I would like to find more about their father.
Yeah,
to be perfectly honest,
true.
This Lieutenant Colonel Sullivan.
Well, I remember we did some digging, didn't we, in the beginning, and we couldn't really find.
So they scrubbed his internet stuff. There was a bunch of stuff that was on there, and I can't remember it anymore. But I do remember going back and looking for it again and not being able to find it. The whole thing was scrubbed. But anyway,
I do have my own.
Same day, James Sullivan was similarly evicted. So in December 12th, pro and anti-Trump activists traveled to Washington, D.C. Brawls broke. 4 people were stabbed. That day, John Sullivan was escorted from an event at Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington after he was identified by activists aware of the accusations. They got him up and took him away. They just removed him. They're like, you need to go.
You need to go, sir.
The same day, James Sullivan was similarly evicted from a pro-Trump event in Washington.
Yeah, so people started to catch on. They're just like, you're here trying to stir up some shit, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's really funny. They both got totally caught and identified by real activists.
Yeah. All right. So now we're moving into the actual events of Jan 6.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he wore a ballistic vest, gas mask, and entered the building through a broken window. He took extensive video. There's also, I believe there is video of him breaking a window.
Yeah.
Because I saw that somewhere else.
Like I said earlier, the fact that this guy's not in jail should just send up some red flags, man. People should be asking questions about that, because there are people who did basically next to nothing besides being in the building or something compared to what. Or being even on the grounds next to the building.
Yeah, there are people that walked in through open doors, took some selfies and left and are still languishing in jail.
Yeah. Meanwhile, John Sullivan is on footage, his own footage, rallying people up, trying to incite violence. It's just, and he's out. He's
what up, Modsock? Welcome.
Hey, Ralph. What's up, buddy? How's it going, man?
Thanks for joining us.
Hey.
Anyway, so let's continue. This is back. I jumped back to the other one. Just enthusiastically Yeah. So a close review of the raw footage that he shot inside the Capitol and published on his personal YouTube channel shows him enthusiastically identifying with right-wing rioters, their objectives, volunteering to use a knife to assist them. This was one of the big bads that got him in super duper trouble because he had a knife on him. These are the charges that were that are pending against him, still pending against him, as far as I know. Entering and remaining in a restricted building or grounds with a dangerous weapon, disorderly and disruptive conduct in a restricted building or grounds with a dangerous weapon, unlawful possession of a dangerous weapon on the Capitol grounds.
Yeah. How many charges you say?
8, I think.
8 charges.
I think you got 8. 1, 2, 3. So obstruction of official proceeding, 1. Civil disorder, 2. Entering and remaining in grounds with the weapon, 3. Disorderly, disruptive conduct with the weapon, 4. Unlawful possession of the weapon, 5. Disorderly conduct at the Capitol, 6. Parading, demonstrating, picketing in the Capitol, 7. False statement or representation to the agency of the United States.
I wonder what that was.
8. Aiding and abetting, 9. And forfeiture is so this is the indictment against him that has all the charges. And we'll get there.
Yeah,
we'll get there. So going back to the Capitol. So basically he broke inside and she was cheerleading, cheering the crowd on, saying, burn this S down. We're doing this. We're making history, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, he eventually, it climaxes with the shooting of Ashley Babbitt.
Which he, gets that
footage.
That really stunning footage, honestly. He was right there and captured it, right as it happened. And that was the main video that went around that most people saw came from this guy. So,
yeah. So he goes there. And apparently, when he spoke with Max, He insisted that he has no political ideology. Again, with this sort of nihilistic chaos sentiments, it's the same thing that we just saw with that 22-year-old mass shooter in Highland Park. Similar kind of like nihilistic lack of meaning and desire to just burn it all down.
Yeah, a perfect subject to try to bring in as an informant or to radicalize,
or perhaps he was created this way.
Brent and I,
this is the result.
MK Ultra vibes.
This is the result of trauma, folks.
Probably.
When the world has been so cruel to you, and you have not been blessed with parents that were kind and generous and not super damaged.
Could be more complicated than that too,
and then again, even people that have had super damaged parents and been in horrible situations have found the strength of character to pull through and to triumph and to go on to bigger and better things and to learn from the experience.
And vice versa, there are people who had great, excellent parents who tried everything they could to do what they could for the kid, and the kid still just did not have a conscience for some reason and just turned out to be a straight up cluster B pathological whatever. So it's like
evil exists.
We don't know exactly where not having a conscience comes from, but we do know that there are definitely some people out there who don't have one. And look, John Sullivan could very well be one of those people. When you look at someone like him, he does not seem to care who his actions hurt. It's all about him, right? It's all about the attention that he wants to get, the fame, all of that stuff. And who knows who he's working for that could be even more nefarious and crazy. He might not just be this lone wolf night crawler type, although he very well could be that, and I'm open to the possibility of that as well. But Brent and I don't know, we got some questions, man. You want to pull up his channel maybe?
I was going to get to that later.
Yeah, because
we'll get to that later.
Yeah, we kind of...
Let's finish the story.
Okay, we'll finish the story, but we're going to talk about his channel because that was really fascinating as well. And the fact that he even still has one.
So he got that footage, and then, he left. He wasn't, and that night he didn't get arrested until later.
Yeah.
But he did appear on CNN with Anderson Cooper.
That night.
360, that evening.
Yes.
Let's just go back to the article.
And it's like, did they review all that footage too? You have to wonder. Or did he clip it? I wonder that myself. Did he turn in all that footage to them, or did he clip it? Because if he turned it all into them, like the media organizations had proof of his own criminal activities. So
yeah, well, again, that comes to the wishful thinking and the lack of self-awareness that is ever so present in people with personality disorders.
Yeah.
In the Washington Post, he's described as a liberal activist. Yeah, of course, the Washington Post describes it that way. While the centrist fact-checking organization PolitiFact referred to him as a left-wing activist. MSNBC's Chris Hayes played Sullivan's video at length during a January 8th broadcast, stating that it was licensed from a self-described civil rights activist. So again, here we see his video getting a lot of play on all the majors.
Great journalists, too. They really did their digging on this guy, didn't they?
They really did their due diligence.
Or they knew exactly what they were dealing with, and they're deliberately painting him in this particular way. So,
then everybody on the right has used this in order to paint him as a BLM or an Antifa.
Yeah,
he's a really good, he's a good example of infiltration. I don't know if he's necessarily an example of the Antifa infiltration.
Yeah, but they were for sure. I saw a lot of conservatives and right-wing people saying like, oh, well, this is a perfect example. Like he's just there purely to make the Trump supporters look bad. And obviously he was there to make Trump supporters look bad, but he was also at BLM protests making BLM look bad. And this is kind of the point that Brent and I are trying to bring up with this guy is like, he seems like he's here to make both sides riled up as much as possible, to stir up more conflict, to stir up more chaos. And are there federal agencies who benefit from that, who want that to happen? And I don't know, we lean toward the position that yes, perhaps there are. So
Fox News dedicated an entire article to his presence at the Capitol, describing him as an anti-Trump activist with close ties to Antifa and BLM. As we saw, that's not necessarily accurate. Although he tried. Trump legal counsel, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, highlighted his role in the riot, calling him a suspected BLM activist. His post got over 28,000 retweets as of when this article was written.
Oh, Giuliani.
Despite the overwhelming presence of far-right and openly white nationalist activists in the Capitol, the right wing has exploited Sullivan's presence to blame the left for the catastrophe that Trump inspired. Recent data progress. Well, and so I question that. I think this whole thing was a psyop from the get-go, that the FBI was involved, and that people like Mr. Sullivan are sort of the tip of the proverbial iceberg.
They're a piece, I think, in something larger that was certainly occurring and orchestrated to some degree.
Here you can see some screenshots of his website where he was selling, gear. Many activists have called, a lot of people called him an agent provocateur. Here's a good quote from DC-based BLM activist. If there's violence to instigate, he will raise it to another level, but he's not the one that does it. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and that's what we saw in the January 6th footage. Is he was really trying his best to get other people to do things. He wanted that, and I think, like I said, they wanted to capture something. I think that was the point.
Yeah, dead eyes, right, Breck?
Dead eyes, yeah. No, he's got those cluster B eyes. Yeah, like Josh Slocum says all the time. He's got the cluster B eyes, man.
Sullivan still faces charges in his hometown of Provo, Utah. So this is the other thing. He's still being charged. The federal charges supersede the state charges. So the federal charges have to be resolved first. But it's still interesting that regardless of all these charges that are just pending against him, he's still out.
Yeah. How?
He's not allowed on social media. So except for just making videos. So he's allowed to make his videos, but he's not allowed to tweet.
But you're not, Brent.
What are you talking about?
Your channel on YouTube.
Oh, well, that's different. That's different. I'm not legally, I've been, censored by the corporations.
Yeah, but it's funny.
I haven't been censored by the state.
Yeah, but I'm just pointing out, it's funny that he's got his YouTube channel and that's still up there. He can have that, even though here's someone who's literally, in the Capitol building. Mr.
Guillermo Corrales. Hola, ¿cómo está? Thank you for joining us. We love you, Gilly.
Mi hermano.
How are the chickens and pigs? Yeah. So jealous.
Yeah, we gotta visit again and see how.
Well, we gotta go out that way anyway to see my parents. But anyway, back to
Gilly. Thanks for everything, man. We appreciate.
Gilly's a sweetheart. Yeah. He's a huge financial supporter of the show. We love Gilly.
He's like our number one fan.
He is our number one fan. The founder of the right-wing outfit called Civilized Weekend, James Sullivan, described John to me as an agitator who suffers from mental health issues. So this is his brother.
Understatement.
His brother, James, is now saying that John has mental health issues and it is driven by an insatiable desire for media celebrity.
Look, that's what it appears. He wants it. He really wants it so bad. And look, we're going to look at his channel later and kind of analyze some of his behavior on.
Stop getting ahead of yourself.
But it's just a
quote from his brother. What he does is he creates hysteria and then he takes these phony videotapes of it. So that's why he got kicked out of the movement in Utah, James Sullivan said. They kicked him out because he would go to instigate violence to the point people would get arrested and then he would get views on Facebook. So he was doing this thing. He had a channel called Watch Riot Prawn. And the activists, he would go in, stir up this craziness, get people to do something really radical, very Nightcrawler, right? He would stir this up and then get the video of it and then take it, online and upload it and get a bunch of views.
Yeah.
And then they figured out it was him.
And you see this sort of thing across YouTube in general, even for harmless things, like teenagers doing pranks and things like that. It's all for the views. But this guy is involved in these serious political situations and uprisings, trying to, get the craziest thing that he can get on footage, right? Just so he can get the likes, get the clicks, get the hearts, get the media fame, whatever, make a name for himself, and doesn't care if people get hurt in the process. Doesn't care if people get shot. It's just, you can't help but look at a person like that and not diagnose,
So Max reached out to John Sullivan by phone January 8th while he was still in the DC area. He argued that his flagrant encouragement of the mob in the U.S. Capitol was textbook undercover journalism. Quote, it's like investigating into something or like getting access into, let's say, you're trying to get access into an underground drug ring, he insisted when asked about his encouragement of the pro-Trump mob. You have to get your way in there somehow. How do you do that? So, and this was the same thing he used in an Inside Edition interview. He, would say that he had to encourage and appear to be a part of the movement in order to get the access without having his life be under threat.
Yeah, basically the only way he could blend in, guys, was by telling other people to burn this down. That's the only way. You know, there was no possible way he could have blended into that crowd otherwise, right?
When I asked about him about his own views, Sullivan was unable to offer anything resembling a coherent political position. He initially described himself as, quote, more on the BLM side, ending the police brutality and racial discrimination, but moments later insisted, even to this day, I don't have a political ideology. I don't have a political stance. Through all my conversations with the Sullivan brothers, I learned that they had become the subject of a documentary by a Los Angeles-based photojournalist named Jade Sacker. Sacker appeared briefly in Sullivan's footage. Filming against the Capitol can be heard congratulating him for the invasion. We did it! She chirped. Yeah. She chirped. I like that.
Yeah.
To Sullivan as the mob flowed inside the building. And here's a screenshot so you can see the Anderson Cooper interview.
Yeah, so this was the interview that took place that very night after all of the, the riots and all.
So this is where it gets interesting, right? Sacker's documentary project is being advised by Brian Fogel, who produced Icarus, the Academy Award-winning Netflix documentary on the alleged doping by the Russian athletes, and The Dissident, which covers the murder of Jamal Khashoggi by Saudi government agents and has been endorsed by former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. So here we have Brian Fogel, who is clearly pushing CIA, DNC, propaganda-esque talking points by doing this documentary film work, right? And we've got a connection now between Sacker and this guy and Hillary Clinton. So it's like,
look, you have to ask some questions here. How could you not when you see these sorts of things?
That's fine. George joined in the YouTube channel instead.
Hey, what's up, George? Happy to have you, man. Yeah, I mean, if you want to pop in later, you can still pop in later.
So this is nuts. So Sacker said she hoped Fogel would agree to serve as the executive producer on her project about the Sullivan brothers once he sees the sizzle and a demonstration of the work that I've done, quote unquote. When I reached out to Sacker, and this is Blumenthal talking when I say I, so I don't mean to confuse anyone. I'm reading Blumenthal's article. When I reached out to Sacker on January 9th, she initially downplayed the role of the documentary subject, John Sullivan, in the Trumpist rampage through the Capitol 3 days before. Quote, he's passionate, he's apolitical, she said. He's against the system, but he's extremely nonviolent. Okay, BS!
Burn this down.
Yes. Like, from all that we've seen so far, extremely nonviolent is not an appropriate characterization.
That's not how I would describe him. I mean, he was brandishing his AR-15.
Somebody got shot at his very first counter protest that he organized.
Hilarious.
I mean, this is not a good characterization.
Oh, God, man.
Portraying herself as, quote, someone who is very much politically progressive and opposed to Trump's agenda, she framed her congratulatory comments to Sullivan as an expression of surprise, not approval.
Right.
And well, that's just covering her ass right there.
Of course.
She doesn't want to get charged.
Of course.
And that's another thing. Somehow Miss Sacker made it inside the Capitol, shot a bunch of video, and somehow she didn't get charged with anything.
Yeah. Why? Why?
Curious.
Ask yourself why. Because, it doesn't make any sense from where we stand.
So this is where it gets interesting. John knew somehow that people were considering storming the Capitol, Sacker had told Blumenthal. He had intelligence days before, and I didn't believe him. I never thought that something like that would happen. And then when we showed up at the Capitol, there were thousands and thousands of people there. I didn't think that we'd be able to document what was going on. So when I said we did it, I was just shocked, like we got in there at all, and that we were on the front lines of being able to tell the story. Upon further questioning, Sacker conceded that she was not aware of the full extent of Sullivan's actions in the Capitol. As far as, quote, as far as reliving the whole thing, like I'm still processing it, and I also like a little bit scarred by what happened, she said.
You got to read that one in the voice, Brett.
As far as reliving the whole thing, like I'm still processing it, and I'm still, I think also like a little bit scarred by what happened. Sacker also focused on her documentary lens of the Sullivan brother, James, pro-Trump activist who helped organize January 6th Stop the Steal rally in Washington. James Sullivan is also a Black Republican, inheriting the rigidly conservative political line of the white Mormon parents that adopted him. His and John's adopted father is an Army lieutenant colonel who retired over 2 decades ago. I think he was involved with nuclear stuff, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, we need to find out more about the father.
Yeah, that's the interesting. And then did the father have any direct connections to MK Ultra? Because the timing is It's on.
Yeah.
In an apparent bid to protect his family's reputation, James Sullivan has campaigned to blame the riot on his brother and, by extension, on the leftist forces that John supposedly represents. And if a recent poll is to be believed, his efforts were fruitful. So I guess that means it worked. So a lot of people on the right believe that the thing was predominantly, infiltrated by Antifa. And this is actually a really good point that we should take a moment.
Yeah, we'll look at it. So one of the things.
Hold on, let me get this out.
Okay.
So the idea is that the people on the right see the infiltrators as Antifa or BLM agitators like John, when actually they're more likely FBI or other federal, Democrat connected players. And one thing that we've seen with the FBI, the DOJ, and especially in recent years, is that these organizations have become politicized. They are no longer neutral arbiters of the law. They are used selectively and targeted in order to target political opposition specifically. And they don't, sort of uniformly and neutrally enforce the law anymore. So it's a big problem. And when you have things like, Patriots Front looking a lot like a federal operation, these feds are basically creating this illusion of an extreme right and left. And then everybody in the middle is just getting caught up in it. And then a lot of people are literally getting caught up in it and joining, the radical sides that wouldn't be so radical without all this federal tinkering and agitation from MK Ultra Mind Flayer victims.
So I wanted to talk a bit about just what you and I saw that day and just some of my own observations in regards to this. And one of the things I noticed, and I think it contributes to the perception from the right that Antifa was there infiltrating, is that we didn't really see them there. There wasn't really anyone there counter protesting.
There was no counter protest.
There weren't counter protesters, and if there were,
there was a call from BLM organizations to not go,
yeah,
to not counter protest. The organizers down in DC put that message out specifically because they didn't want to agitate.
Sure,
they didn't want to.
But I feel like Antifa, like those types, the more radical types, probably wouldn't even care about that. So I think just the perception that a lot of the conservatives had is, well, they're not here, but they got to be here. There's got to be someone here. They're doing something, they're hiding, they're wearing Trump gear. And we're not saying that none of that happened. I think possibly some of that could have happened. There could have been just normal everyday people who wanted to go there and start shit, right? And blend in with the Trump crowd. But people like Sullivan, I think, they're too ambiguous. And they do indicate that, I think what you're saying is correct. There was more Fed involvement with this stuff. And maybe they even want to create a trend where other people who maybe aren't directly connected with them are inspired to do these sorts of things as well, copying that.
That's the other thing that we saw. So we marched from the White House area where Trump spoke to the Capitol after he finished speaking. And a big red flag with that this being some sort of like operation or psyop by independent organizations is that the assault on the Capitol had begun before Trump even finished his speech.
Yeah.
So the mass of Trump supporters were not anywhere near the Capitol when, agents or, useful idiots that were recruited by agents started to cause a ruckus outside the Capitol and started to push down barricades, also assault police.
Trump was very clear by the end of his speech. And I remember this too, because, Brent and I, we were there and we listened in person. He was very clear, like, we're going to march over there.
It's going to be peaceful.
It's going to be peaceful, but you're going to make your voices heard. That's what he was saying to the crowd. So yeah, obviously he wanted them to go there, to be loud, to chant, right, to make their presence known, and that, whatever their cause is, they didn't trust the election, all that stuff, to just be heard, right? And that was kind of what he said. But he was clear. He did tell them, to be peaceful, to not, stir up trouble and that sort of thing. And Brent and I just want to go back to this point about blending in and stuff. So Brent and I did not blend in. We very much looked kind of neutral. Some people even probably thought we were lefties. I feel like they were looking at us as if we
were wearing dark clothing. Yes. I believe I wore my urban camo pants, and it was very cold that day. So I had my like a dark
no MAGA things. There was no.
Yeah, I didn't have any MAGA. I didn't own any. I don't have any MAGA.
Well, we're not those types of people, and that's the thing. Is like I think Brent and I definitely went more out of curiosity than anything, and also because we ourselves had questions about the election, and we wanted to talk to people there and see, like, why are you here? Why don't you trust what's happening right now? What is the point of this? Right?
Yeah, we wanted to go to actually do journalism.
Yes, talk to people, interview them.
And those videos are still up. They're most of them are on Brighteon.
Yeah.
Because there was a point where I was like trying different services. Now I'm pretty much just using Rumble and YouTube, but I haven't and some of them are on Rumble. But if you guys want, I can send you the links. Just give me a second. I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, it's worth checking out. We didn't get a whole ton of footage, and we didn't record like every conversation.
It was actually the first time I took our camera out to kind of get myself some experience using it.
Here's the thing, before you and I ventured over to DC for the protest, because we knew it was happening. People knew for weeks it was happening, and this is again how are they not prepared? But before we went out, Brent and I had already decided that this was going to happen. Dangerous Rhetoric was going to be a thing. We knew we wanted to start some kind of show or podcast or something. We knew we had to do something to start getting the truth out beyond just tweeting about things and posting.
Hey everybody, it's
posting on Instagram and that sort of stuff. So we knew we were going to do the show, and we knew this protest was going to be like a big thing. And we knew that however it played out, it was going to be a historic event and something could happen. Frankly, I was the more hesitant one. I didn't really want to go. Brent was adamant about it. He was like, I want to go. I want to talk to people and interview them. I want to document and bear witness, and because they're going to do something crazy and they're going to lie about it, the media, blah, blah, blah. So obviously I wasn't going to let him go alone, and I went along. But it was an interesting thing. I don't regret it. Brent and I have had a lot of interesting life changes since then, but it's also been kind of fulfilling since, even having that as kind of the inciting first incident of the show, the first real thing that we did together to try to get the truth out there. I think it marks us,
Mm-hmm, definitely. And it was fun. I mean, it was cold, but it was fun.
It was cold. Yeah, the weather sucked.
And one of our core values at the time was we're not going to do anything illegal.
Yeah, well, we weren't there to do anything illegal.
That is a rule. Like, if you ever protest you have to be very careful when you decide to do civil disobedience, because the way that you do it can either really, it can bolster your cause, as we saw in the case of the Canadian truckers, but again, your cause really has to be righteous. It has to be something that is a true oppression of freedom. And you have to be very careful in the way that you employ civil disobedience. Yeah. This was not civil disobedience.
And remember,
this was outright violence.
Remember the First Amendment and how it is worded. It says peaceably assemble.
Peaceably assemble.
Yeah. And this is, an interesting point, because I'll never forget during 2020, during the riots, and Andrew Cuomo, and he went out into the media, and didn't he basically say something along the lines of like, well, I don't see where it says that protests have to be peaceful.
Oh, yeah. And we saw this constantly through the 2020 BLM riot season. We had Democratic politicians continuously issuing apologia and rationalization and justification for the riots. But, as soon as the other side does it, it's an insurrection.
Yeah. So
please.
Their argument there, and I'm being devil's advocate here, is that because this was like this important federal event that was occurring, that they were trying to interrupt this trading of hands of power, that this is a more egregious thing than, say, a summer of riots that killed a whole bunch of people.
But in reality, the federal government was the one trying to interrupt the federal government so that they could blame the people in order to steal, or I can't say that. In order to, do some things that I can't talk about here.
I can't talk about here. Anyway.
So let's get back to John Sullivan. So let's see. When describing herself as Sullivan's friend, Sacker conceded that his ultimate agenda is to spawn as much destruction as possible. He's just angry, she reflected to me. And he says it in a lot of his videos. F the system, burn it down. He doesn't think that it can be reformed. Like, he kind of wants his civil war. He's a bit of a provocateur, and he wants to dismantle the system. He believes the value of civil disobedience. Like I said, civil disobedience has to be civil. Yeah. And because he's apolitical, I think he feels more of a sense of allegiance to anyone who shares the values of, I guess, chaos.
Yeah. So what's chaos going to give you? Chaos opens just a pit of
death and destruction.
It's just like, these people, man, this guy.
So it goes on a lot. This is his brother James speaking, I think, at a Proud Boy event.
Yeah. Wow. Look at
James
how
Sullivan
opposite.
speaks at a Proud Boy rally in Utah, September 2020.
Look at how opposite they look too. It's like I'm thinking about the picture of John with the rifle and like the bandana over his face and stuff, and here's his brother with his like red, white, and blue T-shirt. You know, his dad hat on, looking very like conservative,
looking very just like American Boy.
Yeah, Americana jeans, T-shirt,
hat. Yep. Let's see. According to James Sullivan, public outrage over the violence in Washington has completely destabilized the pro-Trump grassroots. They're ratting out each other, he said of his allies. They're running away from Facebook and they're giving up. Sullivan is the founder of Utah-based, as we said earlier. Apparently he's still, I should look up his social medias.
What, the brother?
This looks...
So the brother I am curious about. I want to know a little more about him.
Like so many other right-wing activists, James Sullivan has been determined to pin the violence on leftist Antifa infiltrators. He maintains the ringleader of the PSYOPs was his own brother.
Interesting.
Yeah, but again, I think, John is really just a red herring. He was obviously put out there very early. We saw him on CNN, and then we saw those charges against him issued. He was arrested, and then he was sort of released. He's had he has access to a lot of resources. Clearly, he's got a lot of money. I think we can.
So the brothers aren't on good terms, from what I can see
publicly,
here.
Anyway.
Publicly. And this is, I wonder how true
this could be. This could be a whole part of their, pumping each other's bags, so to speak. The antagonism, because we know conflict does get views. People like conflict. Yeah. They like drama.
Yeah. It's why John was there trying to rile people up and get them to destroy stuff and get
because it gets
mad.
Clicks, it gets views, it gets eyes on the screen. Let's see. At the same time, he maintained that his brother has been afflicted by psychological issues. So this is James talking about John. What his family have found out is that he's addicted to Adderall. He doesn't need to take it because he doesn't have ADHD. And what happens is that he becomes a little bit paranoid. It's easy for him to act cool, calm, collected, but he flips on a dime. And that again that's a borderline trait, really. John Sullivan shot back that his brother was a complete effing liar and accused him of psychological issues of his own. However, I obtained a message John Sullivan sent to a contact after participating in the riot at the Capitol, in which he described himself as feeling mentally unwell. Sean Michael Love, the BLM-affiliated journalist, offered a more jaded perspective on Sullivan's motives. Quote, I definitely think that mentally he has some things he has to work out, but as far as him cooperating with law enforcement, that has been our belief. Sullivan has forcefully denied this allegation as well. So what was the instigator, known alternatively as activist John and Jayden X, really doing inside the U.S. Capitol? A close review of his footage from January 6th demonstrates a clear consistency with destructive behavior, as we saw, recording a rampage, inciting a riot. So this just kind of goes through, and he has some clips here. I can't play it, again, for reasons of potential Damaka takedowns. But yeah, this is just him going through his footage.
I was reading some comments here.
I'll put this link in the chat in case you guys want the article and you can go through it on your own time.
Oh, Brick found us through Nina Infinity. Yeah, she's
Brick
great,
was
man.
in the chat. Brick was in the chat cracking all kinds of jokes when you weren't feeling well that night.
Gotcha. Yeah. I couldn't finish the rest of that show. My stomach was upset.
The hiccuping.
Want to fight about it?
That was such a fun stream. We were talking about Ezra Miller. Speaking of crazy borderline people, let's see. In the National Statuary Hall, the Capitol building stacker came into view for the first time, wearing a California Republic baseball cap and an N95 mask, filming with a handheld camera. She approached Sullivan with a congratulatory hug. I'll give you a hug now. We did it, she said, in a voice mixed with glee and relief. You're right. We did it. Dude, I was trying to tell you. I couldn't say much, Sullivan replied. You're right.
Yeah, that's interesting, though, what he says there. I couldn't say much.
Yeah, so he knew this was going to happen in advance. How? Somebody was handling him. Somebody was, encouraging to be there to do this so that you get this footage. And they may have, there is even a conspiracy theory, ladies and gentlemen, as to regards Miss Ashley Babbitt that I didn't even know until yesterday. Some people have posited that she actually was not offed and that the whole thing was part of a PSYOP in order to bring it to a close. and that her being shot was faked.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a little much.
I don't know. It sounds a little out there. It sounds a little crazy, cuckoo bananas.
I mean,
I never saw
did
the
they
body.
plant her husband on Tucker Carlson and all that? I mean,
It's
he
possible.
would have to be in.
He would have to be in on it. But again,
she
she was in the Air Force, so we have another potential connection to the military.
Sure, but there's a lot of people in the military, Brent. That doesn't mean they're all like connected to the deep state.
I'm just saying this is just more data to consider, more possibility.
Well, we are the conspiracy type guys.
I like to think about conspiracy theories.
We're always gonna speculate in this way and kind of play interesting mind games with things like this, because it is interesting to think about them like this. And I don't think it's totally beyond the realm of possibilities either,
well, it just seems a little convenient to me that he's obviously being handled, and he was right there at the front, to record the video of her getting, shot.
Yeah, I think she got shot. I don't think that was faked. I'm pretty sure she's dead and all of that, but in regards to him being there and
cue the X-Files thing.
I think the point was for something to happen. It doesn't really matter what that was. It could have just
Britt, she dead.
She dead, yeah. It could have just, it could have just been them breaking in. It could have been them doing something else. Maybe those people who were in there with the zip ties and stuff were part of this too, and they were supposed to grab someone and didn't turn out the correct way. I don't know. We don't, but clearly something.
Plans within plans.
Yes, clearly there was a much larger plan going on. John had some foreknowledge of this, and he was tipped off and sent in there to be a part of this larger thing. And I'm convinced that the point was to get this footage, to get this really good, high quality footage, and to go in there and to make sure that if something isn't happening that is shocking, newsworthy, to make it happen. And this, and all of that just seems obvious to me.
George, she done been dead.
She done been dead. Yeah, and look, it's sad. I don't think she should have died. But at the same time,
only person killed was killed by the U.S. government.
Yeah, and look, people tried to go around. They talk about all the numbers that would they say, like 4 or 5 people died?
Oh yeah, they make a lot of shit up.
So I think 2 or 3 of those were medical emergencies, and medical emergencies tend to happen in large crowds, especially if it's too hot or too cold or someone has a condition. Brent and I being in the crowd during when Trump was talking, I remember 2 medical incidents. One of them was kind of far from us, but I remember someone being tended to near an ambulance. And then Brent and I remember someone being carried right past us, actually, I believe.
Yeah.
In the crowd on a stretcher. So, and I don't know. Yeah.
We were, if you look at the footage, there were obviously like over 100,000 people.
It's a lot of people. I think it was way more than that.
I think it might have been,
half a million.
Half a million.
It was a lot of people.
It was a lot of people. And so when you have that many people in a space, you're bound to have medical emergencies.
Yes. Happens at concerts and stuff. It's festivals.
Statistically likely because there's so many people.
Yeah. And then there's the incident with the police officer who they claim was killed there, which turned out to not be true.
Brian Sicknick, who was apparently involved in a scuffle at some point, but first of all, they said that he was hit over the head with a fire extinguisher. That wasn't true. Yeah. Then they said that he was hit with bear spray from a protest. That was never proven or confirmed. Then they said, that his death was a result of his injuries. Not true. He had a stroke. That was confirmed by his mother and the person who did the autopsy.
Well, look, could the craziness of that day have contributed in some way to the stress in him to maybe lead to a stroke? Maybe. But that's not a death that took place directly on that day, and he was not like killed by
also, there were never any murder charges.
Yeah, so
if this was the case, there would have been murder charges.
Yes.
They would have played that up, to the nth extent.
So like Brent said, the only death that took place on that day as a result of like actual violence,
the only person that was
killed
was Ashley Babbitt.
Was Ashley Babbitt. So
interesting.
Make of that what you will. And but look, they were crazy for going in there like that though, and she was climbing through a window like that. That's crazy, man. These people were very serious. They were mad.
Yeah, Brick, if you want to send me a message on Twitter, I can send you the link to join the stream later.
They were pissed, man.
Akapopolis. If you got me on Twitter, I'll send you the link.
Well, how much longer are we going to stream? What time is it now?
It's only 7:14.
Maybe we'll do like another 40 minutes.
I still want to get into some stuff about MK Ultra.
Oh, okay.
And we're not really quite done. So the other thing is that he busts in. He says that he tells people repeatedly that he has a knife, and he uses that in order to get himself to the front of the push. And that was actually the basis of the weapons charges. Let's see. I never said anything. He never said anything when Donald Trump was elected. James Sullivan recalled of John. We'd go to the ranch and have dinner with my dad and mom, and we just had normal conversations about politics. We would rip on Nancy Pelosi, and then George Floyd happened, and he became a radical. And he started defaming my family, called my dad a white supremacist, said that I abused my kids. And again, this is James, the brother, speaking. He was telling people that I savagely beat my now fiance and just trying to destroy me.
See, I wonder though, like you said, how much of this is true, how much of this is like a feigned thing. It would be interesting to like talk to James, but even then, could we trust someone like him if we talked to him and asked him questions? I don't know. Would he really be telling us the full truth about his own involvement and possibly, provocative?
So I'm not going to read all of
things.
this. This goes on. I'll show you guys. So.
Well, I think
Blumenthal
people get
did,
the point.
Blumenthal did an extensive dive. This article, I linked it in the chat earlier.
He did well in this article. Really put everything together.
I'll put it in the description too of the video at some point. But yeah, here you can see him showing it. This is in DC. This one I can
we show that?
Yeah, this one I think I can play.
What's going on? What's going on, everybody? My name's John Sullivan. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. My group is Insurgents USA. We fucking about to burn this shit down. Fuck this shit. Anybody out here?
All right, I'm not gonna play much more.
Yeah, well, but again, a good little tidbit of an example.
You can get, just to give an example
of what this guy was like.
Yeah. And again, apparently he used the similar language to encourage looting. In November 2020, Sullivan published a video of himself encouraging looters during intense protests against the lethal police shooting of Karen Hilton, a youth from DC's Ward 4. Language he used to egg on them was practically identical to his encouragement of the pro-Trump rioters inside the Capitol. Repeatedly insinuated himself in the BLM protests. Yes, Brick, for real. Send me a message on. Okay.
He said he did.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, he messaged.
He was part of the reason. Liver calls. The battle with the Proud Boys erupted that night. Love said some of the activists that went off with Sullivan were absent. There were some people with him that should have probably been with us. So that's when we really started pushing, making sure, letting everybody know, stay away from this guy. So he would peel activists off and use them and take them to get in trouble and arrested. And this is another thing that Dan and I witnessed when we were down in DC, is that there were people in the crowd going around trying to recruit others.
Yeah. We remember one specific incident of someone brandishing a flag, Trump flag, and they were being followed by a trail of people behind them. I don't know, maybe 5, 6, 7. I don't remember. It wasn't a whole lot of them.
Maybe a dozen people.
But they were going through the crowd and they came past us and they were kind of, oh, we're storming the Capitol.
Come on, let's go.
We're storming. Right now, it's just there we're like, that's a bad idea. You sure you want to go over there and join that? That's probably a stupid idea, because at this time it was already happening. There was already a breach. You could see all the people on the stairs.
There was smoke and people were all over the scaffolding.
Yeah. So this was when we had already gone away from where Trump was speaking, and
we marched to the Capitol. We walked across the national lawn and the area between the
and that's
museums there.
That's where I remember these people sort of peeling off from the crowd, and all of a sudden,
and as we approached the Capitol, it was just that we were hanging out there, just chatting and talking to people, and we took some video. And again, I'll put that link in the description, but also it's the Brighteon link.
Another thing too, Brent, I want to talk about is the amount of people.
We can air that video.
The amount of people
I can play that.
You could. It's ours. The amount of people whose charges did end up getting dropped just because they didn't even know where they were allowed to be and not allowed to be. Barriers were taken down. All of that stuff was gone. By the time we had even arrived to the grounds around where we were, and we weren't even that close to the building. Later, we passed close to it because we had to get to the subway to get back to where we were staying. But there were no barriers. All that stuff was gone already, and just there were people everywhere. And there were so many people that there was no control anymore. The Capitol Police had already pulled back into the building, and outside was kind of just like free reign. Are you messaging this guy back?
Yeah, just messaging Brick to let him know how to join the stream.
But it's like, yeah, you know, and how many other people like that were doing something similar, trying to collect others, and were they planted there? You know, like the guys who walked past us and were trying to bring other people and get them close to the building and have them follow them. Were they planted there? Were they told to do that? Or were they just these, you know, delusional Trump patriot type guys who are like, they saw it happening, they got excited, they're like, oh my God, this is historical, I want to be part of this, we're gonna start the new government or whatever. I don't know, you know. I think could be some of that, and maybe someone was planted there to gather some of those types to come along. Don't know, but it was suspicious. It was really odd to us. We were like, why do you want to go over there and you're going to go break the law? They're going to get you guys. Like, this is a trap.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing. Whenever you engage in illegal activity, that is one way they can just start to rile you up.
Well, Jones was there. Alex Jones was there. We weren't near him because we were on the other side. Alex Jones was on the total opposite side.
He was on the north side, I think, or the northwest.
He wasn't near us, though.
We were on the southwest part.
He couldn't hear us, though.
Also, it's a huge area. There were so many people.
But he's loud. If anyone knows what Alex is like, he's loud.
He was on a megaphone.
He was on a megaphone, and we couldn't hear him from where we were, and he was loud. So it goes to show you how big the space is and just how many people were there. So we didn't even get to see him. But he was up there screaming with the megaphone, saying this, yelling at the people on the steps.
Don't go in.
Telling them to stop, like, pull back. You know, this is a trap. Like, so, you know, even Alex Jones was like, oh my God.
And
that's a trap.
And interestingly enough, the last video that I saw that Mr. John Sullivan had put up on his YouTube channel is a 30-minute indictment blaming Alex Jones for the attack on the Capitol.
Yeah. Isn't that fascinating?
Isn't that interesting?
The guy who's in there telling people to burn this down is making footage now on his new little channel saying that, well, Alex Jones is actually the reason that things got out of hand and blah, 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 when Alex was actually there on his megaphone telling people to stop. So it's fascinating to look at that inversion of truth, that inversion of reality of what actually happened. And love or hate Alex Jones, those are the facts of the matter. That's what he was doing and how he was behaving that day. He was trying to calm people down, and he was telling them to stop, to keep it peaceful, to not go in there, all of that, etc. And John Sullivan was doing the total opposite. He went in there. He provoked people. He wanted something to happen. So, all right, inverting truth.
Let's move on to his channel.
Yeah.
So this is Mr. Sullivan's current YouTube channel.
He has less subs than us.
Oh, stop,
no, I was proud of that. I was like, well, look, at least he's not getting any traction.
But the interesting thing about his channel is that he is putting up a lot of content.
Yes.
He's pumping it out.
Yeah.
It's also like these are actually really nice thumbnails. Very professional looking. And it makes me wonder, where is he getting who's doing his video editing?
Is he doing all of it? How does he have time?
Whoever is doing his video editing, I want to do our video editing.
Yeah, for real. How does he have time for all this? Like, does he work?
Well, this is all he does.
And if this is all he does, where's this money coming from?
But look, all these shorts, you know, he's got all these shorts from 2 days ago. It's like 1, 2, 3. I'm lucky if I get one short, maybe a week, 2, 3, just because I'm not that regimented with it, but he's got a lot of shorts. Oh, these were cute. So these are the ones where
cute. That's not the word I would use for it.
So these are the ones where he likes to like throw fireballs at things.
Yeah. So
he's got a couple of these where he sort of like, you know, does some woo-woo superpower.
Yeah. So they're video edited, you know, for people who might just be listening. They're video edits of him like throwing energy balls and stuff, like he's in Dragon Ball
doing
Z
lightning.
There's
a couple of these.
So it's like, what is this shit, man? Seriously, who is this guy and why is he not locked up? Why is he out with his dumb little YouTube channel? He got away with going in the building, got away with rounding people up, and he's over here making little Dragon Ball Z videos and posting like multiple videos every day. It's just, again, what is going on?
So I found this website, American Gulag here. It has a whole sort of collection on Mr. Sullivan. It was very useful for me gathering the research and finding things. So he was arrested in Salt Lake City, charged with a bunch of stuff. And these are just the Utah charges. And then his the whole thing got sort of pushed back because the federal charges supersede the state charges. So the federal thing has to get resolved first. And as you can see, this is the case docket, for his case. And there have been a lot of memos and notices and motions. This has gone back and forth a lot. So I just went to the last one and I clicked it to open that up. And this is where it's at right now, is they pushed it back. They were supposed to have a hearing on April 20th, 2022. It looks like it got pushed back perhaps 60 days. So that would have been April, May, June. So there should have been a June thing that happened, but I didn't see any indication that the June thing had actually happened. So they're just talking about pushing it back, and they are, they say basically to give people more time for, like, there's a lot of material to go through. Additional time will afford the United States time to continue to produce discovery, and Defense Counsel time to review and investigate any matters as needed, and the parties time to discuss any possible pre-trial resolution of this matter. So it makes me wonder, are they trying to draw this out? Are they trying to make this go away because he is working in some capacity
still
for the federal government?
Yes.
When he puts out videos blaming Alex Jones for, the attack on the Capitol, which is kind of like one of those little CIA, FBI talking points.
Again, it's the inversion of truth. He's blaming Alex for provoking people when that's literally what he was doing, and Alex was trying to do the opposite. So
I just want to click here. This is funny. This following content has been identified by the YouTube community as inappropriate or offensive to some audiences.
He must never.
So I watched 7 minutes before I had to turn it off.
Yeah, so this is like 33 minutes of like strung together footage of Alex.
Look at the quality of this intro right here.
Intro and all that.
Like, it's just like really,
it's pretty good.
It's really well done. Yeah. I really want to play it just to give you guys the sample, but I don't want to do I don't want to get copyright. But you can see it's a lot of advanced. Look at these graphics. Like, this is high quality.
So he takes all these like clips of Alex going crazy and yelling and stuff, and some of them are like old clips too. Strings them together most of it out of context, and he has like this sort of like ominous, creepy music going throughout the whole video, and then it's kind of interspersed with clips of him commenting about Alex and blaming him for inciting the January 6th incident, and
also professional setup. He's using a teleprompter. When you watch, you can see his eyes going back and forth across the screen, so he's clearly reading.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder, who wrote it? Did he write it?
Yeah.
And then he's got these like really aggressive clips of Alex.
Well, Alex has so many of them.
This was hilarious. If you guys didn't see the time that they had Alex Jones on the Joe Rogan podcast, and Johnny Bravo like wound him up by I forget what he said here.
Classic moment though.
He wound him up. He said something about, it was the late term abortion thing. Like, he was telling them that there's no late term abortion, Alex. And Alex is like, I can totally freak it out.
The freak out is great though. It's so memeable.
It's very classic Alex. And so
he's got his pro wrestler style.
Then they show a clip from his indictment. He brings up the fact this is a low point for Alex, but they love to drill him on it because he sort of fell for the Sandy Hook crisis actor hoax and got nailed on it because it wasn't a hoax.
Well, he apparently mocked some of the parents who people had died and stuff, and he got dragged for this for sure, and for a bit of good reason, but he's also spoken out about it quite a few times, apologized. He's like, I was wrong, and look, someone like Alex, they will look at any of the craziest, weirdest type of conspiracy, and they might be a little more prone to believing these things, but you got to give the guy credit. Man, he's been accurate about a lot of shit.
So it strikes me, the title of this video, Pure Evil, Alex Jones plans to storm the Capitol.
Isn't this funny?
Full documentary.
Isn't this funny? The guy who literally stormed the Capitol is blaming this other guy.
And then you go into the comments. You go into the comments and you see, it's like one guy makes 4 comments and one other person that's just like, geez. And I'm like, are these his sock puppets?
Yeah,
is Scott Graver like Jayden X's little sock puppet?
Maybe.
One has to wonder.
Who knows, man?
Oh no, I don't think he will. I think he's actually a person. I think we clicked him. Yeah. Oh, I don't know who that is.
That was the bell. I'm gonna go grab it and I'll continue.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Someone's at the door. Radar's freaking out a bit. But yeah, this video that John did about Alex is really rich, man. And like I said, say what you want about Alex Jones, like him, hate him. The fact of the matter is, his presence that day, he wasn't the one trying to rile things up. He wasn't the one trying to cause trouble. From the footage I've seen, he was very much trying to calm people down, and that's just the facts of the matter. Go look the footage up. But John is quite the opposite. So it's fascinating to see this inversion of truth. Like I said earlier, he's literally presenting the opposite of what happened. So, but yeah, at least it's not getting that much traction. I mentioned that earlier. He has less subs than us. His videos seem like they're getting an average of 3-digit views, which most of ours do as well, except one of our recent ones, which popped off. But yeah, who was that?
That's actually like really good news. It was our neighbor. He's going to join us in the legal battle against our evil landlord.
Oh, okay, interesting.
You should have clicked it back to the thing. Oh, there we are.
No, it's cool. Yeah, no, it's fine.
So
I didn't even realize I was on the other screen there.
All right, let me bring Brick in. Brick, we're gonna pull you in here.
Oh, wow. This is insane.
Welcome.
What's up, you guys?
Yo,
Nothing. Chilling. Nice to meet you digitally.
Nice to meet you, gentlemen. How's my mic? Because this is new, so
You sound fine.
Sound good.
sounds okay.
Me
All right.
digitally.
Nice to meet you, gentlemen. How's my mic? Because this is new, so
You sound fine.
Sound good.
sounds okay.
Oh,
Me
I can't echo
digitally.
back, Brent.
Nice to meet you. Well,
Sorry.
Jesus, I got a lot of echo. How do I fix that? Let me see.
That wasn't you. That was me.
That was Brent.
I had the stream open on a tab.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I went.
I just I wanted to comment on Brick's really deep bro voice.
Oh, it's totally fake. Totally fake.
I mean, seriously, you guys.
I don't like
show.
Ah.
Totally put on a show.
Stop.
You stop it, Sinner.
So, Brick, have you heard of Mr. Sullivan before? Like, what's your extent of his?
No, honestly, this is like you have de-virginized me on this man.
Sweet.
Yeah, but I'm all about this shit. That's why I was like, dude, I got to talk to these guys because you start talking deep state stuff, I'm all in.
Well, how much do you know about MK Ultra?
I know a lot about MK Ultra.
So for people that aren't in the know, MK Ultra was revealed during the 1975 Church Committee. It was a government investigation into the use of LSD and sensory deprivation in order to control people's minds or influence their ability to function in the world.
It's the basis of Stranger Things.
Yeah, it is the
It's
basis.
actually that is true. Actually, that is in fact true. George said that Brick's voice is hot.
What's up, George? How you doing?
What's up, George? You should do movie trailers or something.
That's actually what got me into radio and stuff. Was
Really?
In the world.
Yes.
Nice.
No, there is definitely something to having a particular voice, I think, and doing this sort of thing, podcasting, radioing, that sort of thing.
Totally.
I don't have the voice. You got the voice, though.
I literally have never live streamed. I started YouTubing 10 years ago. I broke my back and my neck, so I didn't make videos for 9 years. So
Wow.
I just started again and made 3 videos in the past few weeks or whatever, and all because of Nina. So it's kind of funny that I found you guys through Nina's stream, and I was like, you guys are dope. I like you. I want to hang out with you guys.
That's how we felt about her.
She's awesome.
She's
She's
so
funny.
cool. Carrie Smith told us about her, but actually it turned out Brent and her sort of knew each other a little bit because
We were on an internet forum together a long time ago.
we all frequent this kind of conspiracy type forum thing that we like to hang out on. But Nina is definitely our people. We like the nerdy stuff. We like the out of the box thinking and really asking the really crazy questions about what's happening. Everything from psychopaths to aliens to what is
the
what is
coolest
the
thing when you find people that think out? Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
Like I said, I'm
Go,
still
go.
trying to figure this out.
It's like
But it's so cool when you find other people that aren't afraid to think like that and admit they think like that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yes, come, please
Yeah.
be a freak with me. Please.
the conspiracy theorist label is it's like a brand,
Yeah.
wearing the scarlet letter, and as it was intended in the late 60s. I think it was in 1967, they started slandering anybody who doubted the official story about the JFK assassination as a conspiracy theorist in order to ride. And, that was the origins of the term, interestingly enough.
But I think you're correct. And just a lot of people, I think there are more people than we realize who do like to think about these things and ask questions and speculate maybe about things being a little weirder than maybe they seem, but they're too afraid to verbalize that. They're too afraid to have the conversations and talk about it and say like, hey, I've thought about that too. Maybe reptilians are real. I don't fucking know. Like, who
Mark
knows?
Zuckerberg, what more proof do we need?
But I think it's great to be so open that you're really not afraid anymore about having conversations, literally about like anything, man. And the weirdest shit is on the table for us. That's why we started this show. Partly.
For real, dude. I found out once you really, I can swear, right?
Yeah, we're not monetized.
Okay, neither am I, dude. I got 55 subs. So
dude, you'll get there, man. I remember when we had 55 subs. You'll get there.
But there's something that is so freeing about when you stop giving a fuck what people think about you.
This is true.
Yeah.
And then when you reach that precipice, then you gravitate towards other people that think like that, and that's how you find cool people to talk to.
Yeah.
Just the opinion of a
no,
man.
There is something to that. Although I do think it's a little more complicated personally. Like I think we should try to give a fuck about what the people who give a fuck about us think about us. And and because they'll tell us the truth. Perhaps there are things we're doing and saying that are dumb, and if someone cares about you, they're gonna point that out to you.
Yeah.
And I think if you can discern that they truly, really do care about you, you listen to them, and you try to give a fuck about what they think about you because you're like, they care about me, so maybe they're right. But generally speaking, in regards to
strangers,
the general internet and population of people who you'll probably never meet and interact with, and maybe we'll see what you're saying and doing online if you're an outspoken person. Yeah, it's liberating as fuck to talk about whatever the hell you want, to not be afraid to touch even the most taboo things you can think of, and just have the conversations. If it makes people uncomfortable, then go somewhere else. Like.
Okay, so I was gonna show a little bit of the footage that we shot, but I just realized one of the problems with this and the YouTube is that some of the things that they say on here, I'm not going to be able to air.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, so when the protesters explain why they're there protesting,
what they say in regards to why they're there is not allowed to be said on YouTube.
But here's just some general footage. I think we can.
This
is from the My Brighteon video.
Okay.
Just to kind of give a little bit.
Yeah, you can see the obelisk there, the Washington Monument. Oh, this was that guy from Romania, right?
Yeah, no, his parents were Romanian immigrants who came here during the communist takeover. And then he explained that his flag was like representative when they removed Ceausescu from the palace or whatever. They cut the hole out of the flag, and that's why the Romanian flag has a hole in it.
I mean, that guy was definitely a little radical.
This was where he was speaking. So you just get an idea of how many people that were there and the general vibe. Everybody just started to push forward.
Honestly, this is like a sample of what was there. It was a lot.
Yeah, this was us waiting to hear Trump speak. He speak like way over there. And this was during the walk.
So yeah, this is pause it.
Crazy.
This was right after he finished speaking and the march began. And there's something interesting about this moment for me. I've been wanting to write about it too, like a poem or something. I had this really like sad experience almost during this. He was playing Frank Sinatra, I did it my way. Mm-hmm. And it just felt very much like almost like, I don't know, I got this feeling that Trump knew it was the end. And that
the end of an era.
And that there was no hope that this was going to be overturned. And if it almost felt like he wanted to do something, with Jan 6 showing up there, talking to this base that, listened to him, some send off, something to them to just give them something, and I was almost a little sad just because people put so much hope into single figures, right? Politicians, personality, and in many ways, Trump very much is that. You know, I'm not saying he's like Hitler or the devil or anything of that sort, but you know, people put a lot of stock and hope and faith into these figures to solve their problems, to fix their lives, to heal this country. And man, we're the only ones who can do that. You know, Trump,
right, dude. I was a severe victim of TDS, like Trump terrain. Like I hated the man. You know, I was just like, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I consider myself center, and I just want what's best for everybody.
Which is hard. It's hard to figure out how to do that, you know. And who's to say what is best for everyone, too? You know, it's
exactly. And my issue with Trump was he had good policies, but it's like, dude, you are inciting so many people. Just chill for a minute.
But that style did play very much to advantage. You know, it's
it's definitely
love or hate the guy. The way he used Twitter, I talk about this often, but the way he used Twitter to directly, have that direct line to his base, and to be able to speak to them in that direct way. No president or, people campaigning for a presidency, I'm talking 2016 here, especially, no one had ever used social media in that way before the way he did.
And I'd take him over Biden any fucking day.
Yeah.
Well, Biden's basically a corpse.
Yes.
Yes, he did.
Finger puppeted by the World Economic Forum, and you see Klaus Schwab, you see Hillary Clinton, you see Obama.
It's I agree with you there. The state of things right now is not looking too good, and I don't like that. I never really liked Trump either. I don't hate him, but I would hold him up as someone that I necessarily like or want to emulate, maybe in certain ways, for certain things. And there are certain things you got to admire about a businessman and someone who does build himself up. And that sort of thing.
I do respect him. I might not like him, but I respect the shit out of his grind and his hustle for sure.
He's also just like a fascinating historical figure to me. There's something, I don't know, just really fascinating about him. I don't know what it is. I don't know, but
it's because he's so damn unique, man. There's nobody like him. He's him. That's.
But like I was going to say, I do agree with you that despite the fact that he's someone that I wouldn't say necessarily like, I think we would be better off right now with him still in office. And I think
I concur.
That sudden change in the way it was done, and the fact that there's never going to be any peace over this. And this is one of the things Brett and I, why we're going to keep talking about Jan 6 ourselves, and because we know the left isn't going to let it go. Those people are.
So you're rambling.
I am rambling.
I want to wrap up the conversation about John Earle Sullivan real quick.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys.
No, it's all good. It's okay.
I'm sorry.
It's a live stream.
I also want to bring
winging it.
Kind of, we're just winging it. But so the last thing is that we don't know what's going to come of all these charges. He's got all these charges. We're waiting to see what's going to happen. There should have been something in January, but I couldn't find any follow-up or any documentation on what went down. Or not in January, I'm sorry, in June. There should have been something that just went down. And I don't see any new documentation or any stories about it. There's no media coverage of this.
Of course.
The most recent story in the media, I believe, is from May of 2021, talking about the civil forfeiture of the $90,000 that he got paid for his footage. The government took it, and they are not going to give it back, is what they say.
So, which goes back to one of the things we were asking earlier, where the hell is this guy getting his money? Especially if all that was taken
Where's
from
his
him?
income coming from?
How is he still doing it?
Somebody is funding this dude.
Somebody's funding him for sure.
It seems that way.
So, and this is where they've had a bunch of motions to dismiss the counts from his thing, but I don't see anything where this has been responded to. So his motion dismiss supports as follows. So, and then he gives, reasons why the charge should be dismissed. I forget which one that was.
Just look at the comments really quick. I see George is getting some love from Sue Escobar. Yeah, George is great. Go check out our recent episode with him.
Yeah, it was funny. It's mostly
she says,
about pride.
Yeah, George is cool, dude.
She says, I learned of dangerous rhetoric from Carrie Smith when she had them on her show, A Small World of Wonderful People. Thank you. We appreciate that. We love Carrie. She is just a lovely, lovely, lovely woman. Her vibe checks out. We got to spend some time with her not too long ago. So.
Well, you got to meet her and chill with her?
Yeah, we hung out with her twice. We met her in Texas. And that was after we had her on the show. And then we went to the Minds Festival of Ideas in New York City, and she came to stay with us, stayed at our apartment for the weekend, and
that's cool.
Spent some time with her. And she's a great person. She's genuine.
She is.
So shout out to Carrie if she sees this.
So basically, the end story with Mr. Sullivan is that he's still producing a bunch of videos. He's not really getting much traction with them,
thankfully.
Well, it's just interesting because, like, I guess it does show that the CIA talking point stuff really doesn't get traction.
Yeah, but it also shows like why our questions about where the funding is coming from are valid questions, because you're clearly not getting it from your channel. You know, you clearly don't have this following, this large base who are funding the things that he's doing. So how is he still out here active and doing these things? And
yeah, I was going to ask you guys, is he like out active, or is he just like sitting in the basement like I am right now? I'm in my mom's basement because I'm that guy. Or is he actually out doing shit?
He's doing shit.
Out doing shit. And this is one of the reasons we're talking about this guy, because why is he out when there are other people who did less than him on Jan 6th who are still locked up right now? So you have
who's the guy that was on Tim Pool recently? Do you know who I'm talking about?
I do. I don't remember, but I think Brent and I did watch. Did we watch that?
Which one?
It was a Jan 6th, one of the prisoners who.
Yeah, and they came at him so hard.
Oh, I haven't seen that one yet.
Oh God. Yeah.
But just look at the titles of some of his videos. Like the first one, this one blames Alex Jones for January 6th. Yeah, this one is like about Russia invading.
Why did Russia invade Ukraine?
How disinformation is being used by Russia.
Yeah, it's all the talking points of like the mainstream media.
No cops, no prisons, total abolition.
Total abolition.
China's plot to take over the world. How strong is Russia's army? I mean, all this stuff.
Yeah, and it's all very like, I don't know, inflammatory and sensationalist. It kind of, I don't know. But his video editing,
the quality of his editing is what really strikes me. Yeah. It's that the videos are very professionally done.
Yeah. Someone's working with him, and
because editing's a bitch.
It's so hard.
And it's such a bitch. Is he paying that editor, or is he just doing all this himself? And even if he is doing all this himself, how does he have time for that? Like, where are you getting your money from? Like, credit cards, probably.
It's either this is all he does, but Daniel and I dedicate a lot of time to our internet stuff and producing content, and we don't have nearly as much content as he does, and it's not nearly as professional or high quality as his.
Well, we do as much as we can and still like maintain our sanity, whatever's left.
It's a lot of work. It's so much work. Because like I said, I'm really new to the game, hopping back into it, and just to get 3 videos up in 2 weeks took me forever. And that was straight up editing. Like filming it doesn't take that long. Sitting in front of the camera is the easiest part.
Yeah.
Everything after that, it's the research going into it, then the editing after the fact, and then reading articles like this topic. You guys obviously know what you're talking about, so it's not like you're hopping on stream and just going, "Who's this guy? What does he have to say? Let's talk about it." You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's a style too, though, and you can do that. There are plenty of streamers who just go on and they're just streaming, doing whatever, figuring things out as they go. Maybe they're just hanging out and talking. Like one of our friends, Starson, who we've had on the show before, she does regular streams where she does drawings. Like she'll have the camera.
Artist too, awesome.
Yeah, so she'll be live drawing and just shooting the shit and hanging out with people who follow her channel and talking about whatever politics. Maybe bring someone on with her like we're doing right now. Same sort of thing. So not all content has to be structured in that way. I think it depends on what is like the purpose of the content. What are you trying to achieve? Are you having a long form conversation, or are you trying to like instruct someone about something in an organized way to present information? And when you're doing that, I think there's going to be more editing involved. Whereas when you're doing this, this is live streaming, so obviously no editing. But even
I love this. I don't ever want to go back to editing.
But even when Brent and I do like our more formal episodes and we pre-record those conversations that we do,
which I've watched, I told you I'd have your back.
We appreciate that, man. But typically we don't like do editing for those either, unless there's like some real like blip or like an interruption or something we got to cut out.
Okay.
So, we've kept it to a minimum, and that's made it a little easier on us. But we do want to like get an intro going and things like that. So we we're gonna have to step up the editing game a bit.
Well, holler at me on that, guys. I'd seriously, I'd love to collab with you. And like, I draw. I have some editing experience. I went to school for broadcasting, radio, and stuff like that. So my audio editing experience has translated well into the video aspect of it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I just subbed your channel. I like it. Everybody should go sub to Bridge.
Yeah, and join our.
Thank you.
Get Brick on our Discord
Put
too.
it
We
in
got to be like more active on our Discord. Try to get like a little community in there.
What's the Discord?
It's just like a chat platform, sort of.
I'm such a boomer. I know what it is. But
Discord is a third-party program. It lets you make your own voice server, and you can also have chat channels. And you can set it up. It's free. You can set up however you want.
Oh, you had me at free.
You can restrict it to like certain people.
It's typically used for gaming a lot, but also like
we have a memes channel in ours.
Yeah,
let me post the link.
Sometimes friend groups will make their own channels on there, but also like content creators sometimes will have their own Discord channel where people go and interact with them. And it's also a big thing in like the NFT crypto space, NFT communities, and a lot of them congregate with their specific clubs on their Discord.
You can also download the software, or you can use a web browser, which is kind of, it makes it really versatile for people. Yeah. I put the invite in the chat channel for ours, so if folks have Discord.
Yeah, did you say you subbed to me? Did I miss that?
Yeah, no, I should have. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Really? Thank you. Like seriously, dude, that's freaking awesome.
57 now.
Hold on, I'm gonna sub to you on all my channels.
Dude, really, dude, you have no idea how cool that is.
Bump the number up.
Like seriously, I appreciate that. You have wow. Who would have known? I was sitting on the couch with my cat like 2 hours ago, and I'm like, "Hey, all right, Rhetoric's going live. Let's check their shit out."
Man, we own shit, but we appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
So the MK, I wanted to get back to MK Ultra a little bit.
I'm sorry. Yeah, let's talk about MK Ultra. I love it.
This is an interesting little summary of the. Where's my cursor? Okay, there it is. An interesting little summary. It was headed by Sidney Gottlieb. Began in April 1953, on orders of then CIA Director Alan Welsh Dulles. Alan Dulles, everyone will recall, was key in covering up the assassination of JFK in 1960.
I always thought it was Dulles.
Dulles.
Is it Dulles? And there was two of them. It was him and his brother, the Dulles brothers. Both were heavily involved in the Central Intelligence Agency, and Alan Dulles was the head of the CIA, who I should say, Kennedy.
Doesn't he have an airport?
Yeah, they named it after him.
Yeah. So Kennedy fired him actually as head of the CIA, and then shortly after, when Kennedy was assassinated, Alan Dulles ended up as part of the Warren Commission to investigate.
He was the head of the Warren Commission.
Head of the Warren Commission. So think about this, like,
God, I love other people who love history.
Think about it. It's like the president gets assassinated, and then this guy who is the director of the Central Intelligence Agency, who was fired by that president, ends up as
the guy investigating his death.
Head of the
He was
committee.
also probably, in the most likely person to be involved in his death.
But this is my point. It's like,
no way.
Total fox guarding the hen house.
But it's a total conflict of interest when you think about it, just on a very common sense level. You're like, why the hell would you put that guy as head of the body to investigate the assassination of someone who fired him?
Right.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So let's see. Going in here, the original justification was they wanted to make a truth serum, so they thought that they could use LSD for that. But since it wasn't working, they started to explore its use in mind control and potentially using it to assassinate foreign leaders or control foreign leaders. For the next 20 years, the CIA, in conjunction with the Special Operations
Manchurian Candidate.
Yep. Engaged in a panoply of illegal activities. I love that word, panoply.
Yes.
Most controversially, unwitting test subjects were subject to a number of techniques to alter their mental state and brain functions, including the administration of drugs like LSD, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, verbal and sexual abuse, as well as a variety of torture techniques.
Sounds like my life story.
Girl, that's a tragedy.
I know. I'm sorry.
But this is what they do. And so if anybody, the deeper, if you want to really go into mind control, you have to look up the Greenbaum speech.
Yes.
That's Greenbaum, Greenbaum.
Yeah. All of our conspiracy nerds, go read the Greenbaum speech.
That
intro.
What? After the stream. Not now. Not now. After the stream.
After the stream.
But that is a deep dive from this guy DC Hammond, who gave a speech in 1994 that infamously became known as the Green Bomb speech. And in it, he was a therapist. His specialty was dealing with subjects who had what was called multiple personality disorder at the time, what we call dissociative identity disorder now.
We can argue whether or not that even exists.
Doesn't exist. Sorry.
But anyway, he gave this speech, and what he was finding among all his patients was this consistent programming, this alpha, beta, gamma, like different, using the Greek alphabet and a lot of symbolism from the Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism. And he, through hypnotic regression with his subjects, he would ferret out all these different programs or alters in their psyche and what they were used for. And a lot of they had programs for being sex slaves. They had programs for drug running. They had assassination programs. They had self-destruct programs, and the programs didn't really have an awareness of each other. And he had a very specific technique to go in and clear the programming so that fraction part of the person's personality could reintegrate with the whole.
Wasn't there also a way to like trigger that part of the person to come out, right? When they needed them with like a specific
they could
word
triggers,
or
words or phrases. A phone call could be used to activate the individual.
So
that shit is real. That shit is real.
I just thought of Winter Soldier, which is
yeah, totally.
This sort of thing, that we're talking about here.
That's what I don't think people realize how much fiction is derived from the crazy shit that really happens in our world.
This is true.
And reality is stranger than fiction, man. It really is.
For sure.
That's the hardest truth for people to believe.
Gilly said, read the Green Bomb speech during daylight hours. We're going to read it at nighttime.
It'll give you nightmares.
You're going to be like,
that's
am I
for sure.
green bombed?
So getting back to MK Ultra, 1955 document describes the substance used. They included drugs that would promote illogical thinking, impulsiveness. The point where recipient would be discredited in the public. Yeah, definitely. Cause victims to age faster, recreate the effects of alcohol, all kinds of stuff. And then LSD eventually came to dominate the program. There was an interesting project called, what was it? Midnight Climax, I think was the name of the project.
I hope for that every night.
They dosed people that were working they dosed the customers at brothels and then watched and filmed the proceedings via one-way mirrors.
No way. This is news to me.
This is real. This happened.
Oh, I have research to do tonight.
Oh yeah, look up Operation Midnight Climax. It's something they talk about. They've talked about it on Rogan a couple.
Well, I
want
want to comment really quick on you brought up the LSD here being used, and they were using other drugs too. Look, MK Ultra and the CIA and these intelligence agencies, they had a huge hand in many ways in the counterculture movement at the time, and it very much seems like they wanted to like promote drugs and these sorts of altered states, but in like a kind of just free, irresponsible, blow your consciousness wide open type of way. And one of the things Brent and I have thought about this is was part of why they were doing that was it to just kind of pacify people, because the anti-war movement, just really quick, was like a big thing at this time, and it feels like they wanted to get as many people as possible to just like what is the phrase that what's his name used? Tune in, tap out, drop out. What is it? Tune in, drop out.
Oh, I forget.
Yeah,
something along those
lines. You know who I'm
lines.
talking about.
Yeah.
Read in here. The guy, Timothy Leary. That's what I'm talking about. But it feels like they want as many people as possible to become these sort of passive participants, thinking they can just sit and meditate and take drugs and Bodha mantra, and that collectively they can all change reality. When really it's just you're not doing anything. They would rather have you sit there not doing anything than actually actively resisting and rising up. And I don't know. I think there might be something to that, and why they want to promote hippie culture and that sort of thing. I don't know.
I'm with you 100% on that, but I think it's one of two things. They wanted to pacify the people that they knew they could pacify.
Yeah.
So like the people that bought into that, they weren't going to do shit. And you pacify them like that, they're not going to do anything. But the people that they can bring to their side and, almost enlist into what they're trying to do, that are encouraged by that shit, that was also, I think, part of the plan. Was if you react to this stuff and you want to become a soldier and you want to rule the world with us,
and I think, well, they different drugs for different purposes, right? Different drugs for different purposes, you know.
Yes.
And we didn't even go into like using the crack cocaine epidemic to say like reduce, you know, the black community and things like that, or like whether or not they concocted AIDS in the laboratory, and that was like the first COOF-19 run.
Okay,
Yeah,
Dan.
seriously.
So-
That dog is adorable, by the way.
I am, but hey, this is the conspiracy episode, so
So basically with the whole thing continued, and then they eventually got exposed, and then it was supposed to end in
Always does.
the 70s. But really when it ends, it just gets moved into a private from a public, institution into private hands.
yeah, I think they changed names these programs, but
Yes.
I don't believe for a second that people in power within our, control system that we live through aren't still investigating things like this and trying to figure out ways to like actually brainwash people and make them do certain
I think
things
they've
that-
achieved
yeah.
it. I
They
think
probably
They
have.
have.
They
They
have.
really have.
Maybe they
and
mastered
the
it.
trick is to get them young and to
Yep.
fraction.
That's TikTok.
Yeah, and this is kind of what they say in like the Greenbaum speech. They get them as their children. They're the children of families that are typically associated with the program
military.
in some way,
And military.
in the military, or they have these rich billionaires that are involved, and they get their kids and they damage them through ways I don't want to really describe, but it's torture and
Yeah, I feel you.
fraction. It forces them to dissociate, and then through a combination of light and sound and hypnosis techniques, they can program specific programs into them as if they were like a robot, and then they can activate them later. And I think this is what's behind a lot of things that we're seeing in these random, what seem to be random mass shootings, possibly much more orchestrated and managed from a higher level.
I think it's a mixture of that, and it is a mixture of like just the general nihilism. There are definitely those people out there who just want to get revenge on
so the
reality.
question there,
Peterson talks about
the
that. There's
question,
something to that.
the question is it the chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
Did the nihilism result from trauma and damage to the individual, or is the nihilism just manifesting in their psyche?
Or are they?
Can I interject?
Or are they targeting specific types of people who already kind of feel that way? They are nihilistic already. They already want revenge on reality. Someone like John Sullivan, probably. And then they target them. I don't know. Or they radicalize them. Like you said, they make them that way.
What I was just going to say is the general population does not have an understanding of basic human psychology. Like they just don't. And you think that they would, but it's something that's so simple. It's broken down into 5 elements. I'm not going to go into that whole shit, but I've studied human psychology for personal reasons. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I understand
Same.
that. Yeah.
But what the government, whether it be the government, the deep state, or whatever we're talking about here, those people understand that shit and they research that shit, and they're never going to stop, and they see what they do that gets results. And if they get results off it, they're going to turn that knob up, and they're going to get more results and more results. And unfortunately, there are a lot of mouth breathing idiots that eat it up.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay, give me more.
No, you're absolutely correct, and it's definitely something that Brent and I emphasize as often as possible on here is study the techniques of propaganda and mind manipulation and psychology that the people empower themselves study, invest in, want results.
Because we're constantly being bombarded by propaganda every day.
Oh, nonstop, and it will never stop. It's only getting turned up more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
If you looked at my past and like people who I hang out with, like their past and everything like that, they have every reason to be the worst human on the face of this planet and destroy everything. But they're really good people because they understand that, whoa, life kicked me in the nuts and I didn't like it. How can I make life easier for other people?
Yeah.
And that's a rare thing.
It is.
Because you have the mainstream, God, I hate saying it, but the mainstream thing, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this and that, and it just creates an angry mob of purple-haired, just. I'm gonna stop right now before I get myself in trouble.
I think we understand exactly what you mean.
So
Okay.
the question that I have, it was, John Sullivan, impacted by these techniques. You know, he was.
I think he was.
I think he was too. He was adopted by somebody who's in the military, so there's a connection right there. The fact that his behavior is very much in line with if I could imagine what the CIA would want someone to do, or the FBI or the deep state, whatever you want to call the pathological, out of control, dark variant of our government.
The shitheads.
If I could imagine, what they would want in an agent provocateur, he is the perfect thing that I could see them.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if he's the perfect thing. I think he could probably do a little better.
He's high on the list.
He could do a little better. I don't know. He's not doing that great. His channel is doing worse than ours. Come on, John.
What I mean is that he just emulates. He's everything he says and everything he does advances their goals.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's to rile up the population. It's to create the division. It's to drive the wedge between communities. And the fact that it's not just him, but also him and his brother, and his brother's going at it from the opposite direction.
Right.
Who's seemingly more stable. Who knows? Maybe the programming took better.
That's some Sun Tzu shit, Art of War. Sorry.
Look, whether or not they were like created or like used, I think isn't even the most important thing. I think overall what has been done, their actions kind of say everything. And like you said, it plays directly into the hands of the powers that be. So whether they, created a guy like this to do that or saw him as an advantageous type to then push in that direction, it serves the same goal, has the same purpose in the end.
And then what also adds up, to the fact that he's probably an asset is the way that he has been treated by the federal government.
That was what was key when I was watching this earlier. And you were telling me about how him being released and this and that and the other. And I was like, all right, they're not pressing on this guy, but they're pressing on some fucking 103-year-old lady that was 35 feet away from the fence.
Yep.
This bro is an asset. Somebody in the CIA got a real hard on for this fucker and was like, he's going to do our shit.
Yeah, he's gonna be the one. Make sure we get him in there, and he's provoking, and he gets that footage. We need that footage for tomorrow or tonight. It's got to be on CNN tonight, pronto.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we can wrap it up there. Yeah. Thank you.
Brick started cussing.
No, it's perfect. We've been going for 2 hours. It's a good amount of time.
We swear all the time.
I usually only go for 2 minutes, but
I'm from New Jersey, so it's hard for me to not swear sometimes. I gotta reel myself in, so it's fine. You're fine with that. We're not monetizing.
I want to give a shout out to the chat. Oh, Thin White Axe, turn on, tune in, drop out.
That was the phrase. Yeah. So Timothy Leary, that was his whole mantra. And like I was saying earlier to Brick, it's like I do think there was some kind of agenda there in the CIA to push psychedelics in this way to try to.
The other thing about the 60s free love movement, which is a part that somebody, I can't remember where I heard it, but I heard it just a couple of days ago. The way that they pushed they were creating these people that are more immature, more incapable of actually functioning in the world, damaging their brains with overdosing of drugs. Not going to be effective.
On your drug usage, kids.
So the idea is that, that's perhaps was part of the depopulation agenda in the heyday. Yeah. Was that they were, encouraging all this drug use and all this destruction of the family.
You could argue against that, though, because the free love movement also had a lot of sex, and there was a lot of babies who resulted from the free love movement. So you could argue maybe it pushed the population.
Perhaps.
But we're going off on a tangent there.
Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back again.
Guys, before you sign off, can I say one thing?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Seriously, thank you so much. You have no idea how nervous I was to even do this in the first place, because I've never live streamed before, and I was just like I said, I know these dudes are cool, but this was awesome. You have no idea how cool it was for you to do this.
We love talking to new people, and Twitter and YouTube and doing the show has been that's been the best part of it, honestly, is all the doors it's opening into just meeting different people, and they're all from different walks of life. Some of them are well known, right? Some of them are not so well known, but I think everyone has something to
fuck clout.
Fuck clout. Yeah.
Yeah, who cares?
You know,
I mean,
no one knows everything. Everyone knows something.
if you've got a
you know?
conscience and a functioning brain, it's
Yeah.
like you're my kind of people.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Right.
We'll talk
Right.
to people who are
I just want to say from here on out, whether it's on camera, off camera, whatever, you guys are my homies. I love you. Much love. I told you I'll follow you to the ends of the earth. If you ever want to have a conversation with me, reach out. I would love to chill and talk this shit with you
Yeah.
for 93 hours on end. I don't care. I don't
Well,
sleep.
maybe we can do.
I don't know about 93 hours. I need some rest. But
Okay, 72.
72. Well, we'll pop on your channel. Sure, that'd be cool. We can have another conversation and maybe go more in depth about some conspiracy stuff and other conspiracies and things. Like that.
I'm going to take you up on that. I haven't live streamed yet. My first live stream is going to be with Dangerous Rhetoric.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm going to take you guys up on that. I'll hit you up on Twitter. We'll message. My first live stream is going to be with you guys. If you bail out on me, I will never forgive you.
No,
You're going
in
to
the
cancel
DMs.
us. You're going
I
to
gotta care for you.
everywhere. All right, guys. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Remember, sub, comment, share things, donate if you want. Go sub to Brick. He needs subs. He's more lonely than we are.
I'm
guys.
super lonely. I live with my mom and my cat.
Oh my god. I miss my cat. All
I
right,
love my
guys,
cat.
Take care. Take care. Peace out.
Love you guys.
Yeah.
Peace.
Everyone
Stay
in-
hard.
Thank you, everyone in the chat. See ya.